There we go. Hey, folks, it's Steve, and it's the Deployed from Detroit School of Leadership and Madness. I'm very glad to bring back our old buddy Iggy, who's been on leave for a minute. Paul's taking a break, and sliding in this evening is our new buddy and my old buddy Steve. Hey, Steve, what's happening?
About it. Not a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah.
To be here.
Good, good. Steve is a internet phenomenon. He's known worldwide. Well, no, he's participating in these cool online debates, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a sec. But he's kind of informed by that. By he's got a good education behind him, and also a lot of experience in the army, where just like me, he was a dumb kid who's like, "That's what I'm gonna fucking do," and he did it. And he became a tank driver or a gunner or something in a tank.
Called it.
So, all of the above, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get into that, and we're gonna try to. We were talking amongst ourselves about the debate, and so we're not gonna talk about it here because it was such a like. We'll just leave it at shit show, and go from we were right, told you so. It's time to go around, folks. So maybe we'll get to that too. Maybe we can bring up that theme of how the fuck do we go around these idiots? Because I think that's what needs to happen for peace and for unity, and let them have their fucking WWE nonsense, and let it just be that. Let government just be wrestling
We're not going to talk about it.
plus the queen. Yeah, sorry, we're not gonna talk about it. We're not gonna talk about it. Sorry. I probably have some kind of OCD or something. No, I should stop diagnosing myself with shit. All right, gang. So, Steve-O,
We all have PTSD from it.
yeah, we're all from this. Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. The uh, the army is something that I have some experience with, and I'm going to preface with this because it's hilarious to me. The army always surprised. It always seemed like an organization trying to do the right thing in spite of how big it is. Because like it also seemed to be the largest collection of morons I've ever seen at one time. Sometimes, like, and it's not to say oh the Air Force is smarter. It just seemed that like there, the number of people trying to get the amount of shit done. Now that's not to say like in combat when they're getting shit done and getting things executed, it's insanity. Like machines, you guys are machines out there. But when it comes to other things, like there's a lot of stuff where it just seems difficult to communicate to an organization that fucking huge. And I don't know. I think that's where like they get the sort of like oh the army's just a bunch of like even the Marines call the army dumb, and it's not that the army's dumb, but I think like because information is so
It
difficult to
goes both ways, though.
for sure. No, dude, for sure. Like they eat crayons, so like it's a thing. But like I've always been fascinated, and I always wondered like how you could survive in the army, not like in combat, but like in the organization of the army itself. Like the Air Force had its own weird politics, and like we've talked about the Marine Corps politics pretty recently. And then, we'll get into the Navy at some point too, because why the fuck not? But like, it's interesting how you maneuver in these big, sort of semi self aware organizations. Where, because like, even in the Army, like, you have the Army, but you also have like the 82nd and the 101st, and like, where units themselves are their own sort of self aware creatures. They're something almost akin to their own army. And they're not functionally, especially these days with the way things are kind of split up. But I mean, emotionally, they are. To be part of the 82nd means to be something different than the 101st. Well, tactically now because it one's air assault, but like back when they were both airborne, like it doesn't make sense. You're both airborne, and they're like, no, 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 dude, you don't understand. But I think some of that's just because of size. I don't know. I'm talking over you, of course. I didn't even
Oh,
let you
no,
talk.
no, no. I was waiting. I was
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
for kind of a stopping point. I didn't want to
yeah. You may
interrupt you.
have to
So yeah,
just
no,
like
you're
headbutt me.
definitely correct about one thing that each unit in the military is completely different. You brought up the 82nd and the 101. Everybody knows those folks. I was in the 3rd ACR, the 3rd Armored Combat Regiment.
Mm.
We were considered the last heavy armored cavalry unit in the U.S. Army. It was our job, essentially, I mean, in a normal environment, to be essentially the tip of the spear of a larger formation and utilized to either outflank or do recon on larger enemy forces. And we were a mixed unit. So half of we called it a troop rather than a company, which most people are familiar with in military organization.
Yeah,
But we
or
were
F
cavalry, so
troop.
we had our own special little designations and everything like that. We had squadrons. I was in a squadron rather than a battalion. Those
Nice.
kinds of things. But the way our unit was, our lower level unit was uh, composed was we had two platoons of armor, M1A2s, which was one of the units, what I was, a tanker. Then we had two platoons of heavy scouts,
Hmm.
which operated in M2, or I'm sorry, M3A2 Bradleys, which are a little different from the standard Bradleys that
Yeah.
are out there. And I might be getting the designations wrong. My armor familiarity has precipitously since 2010.
Right.
So it's a kind of I might be getting some numbers and some nomenclatures wrong. So I apologize, and if anybody wants to correct me on that, that's quite all right. I'll accept it. But essentially, scouts operate like infantry. Well, at least they did in our environment. They became essentially mobilized infantry. But in a larger conflict, which is what the unit was designed for, they would be operating frontline reconnaissance missions, taking strong points, things like that, taking up blocking positions, or utilized as infantry in necessary situations. Obviously, we weren't fighting a heavy conventional force in Iraq. It was 2005, 2006 that I was over there. So we were fighting an insurgency. Our scouts essentially became infantry. Armor became, I mean, everybody's heard how armor operates in urban operations, and part of that's true. Part of it's not. Armor is actually pretty effective in urban environments as long as
It doesn't get blown up.
you know how to utilize it. The only thing is it is highly destructive. So you have to nerf it quite a bit. You have to nerf a lot of the capabilities, obviously.
Yeah, because even the
Unless it's
shockwave,
necessary.
like let alone like what the shell will do to the target, but just like what the air burst in that area, like if you're standing in between a couple apartment buildings, like you're gonna blow the ears out of some people.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
alone,
I mean, if you got to worry about your own folks too.
yeah,
Uh, we did deploy some 120 millimeter rounds in combat in urban environments, but it usually took a lot of authorization before we would. It's
right,
usually in controlled situations too. But just kind of going back to the way you were talking about different units, and I know I went really in depth on the Third Armored Cavalry Unit or regiment because I'm familiar with them.
yeah, man,
But there was two other armored cavalry regiments in the army at the time: the Second Armored Cavalry Regiment and the 11th Cavalry Regiment. The 11th are the guys in Death Valley. I can't remember Fort Irving.
mm-hmm.
They do the Op 4 thing over there, but they also are deployable, I believe, too. And the second ACR was actually the folks that first started utilizing the strikers overseas, which I've got opinions about strikers. I don't like them.
Yeah,
Never liked them.
are they
I have the
basically just
complete user manual still in the plastic for strikers.
oh shit?
What was that again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I have a user manual still in the plastic of the strikers because I knew one of the full birds that worked on it.
Hell yeah!
Sorry,
It's probably good to say the plastic.
Does it have heated seats?
Yeah, we had some bad experience. We took over from a unit that was operating strikers, and they were getting their ass beat over there. They were that's why they brought us in. I mean, we were going into it. We got completely redirected from where we were supposed to be in the Baghdad area. They sent us all the way up north into Kurdish territory. Actually, Turkmen territory is technically the city I was in, but where no one spoke Arabic except for the Baathists.
Right.
Which
at least makes
the
that
small
easier.
Baathists too, and the foreign fighters they spoke Arabic too, obviously, but the regular people they were all Turkmen, so they didn't speak much Arabic.
Yeah, probably Russian.
It was out of
foreign.
nowhere.
Yeah.
But where was I going? I got off track there.
keep going.
Bring it at me. I'm better when I've got crosstalk. If I start talking I'll start rambling.
Oh, dude, I'm listening. I forget everything that's going on half the time. I get into those like time travel moments, and then I'm like, and we were doing what now? Oh, we're doing a show. Interesting.
Yeah, we're just BSing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the personality of units is what you were kind of alluding to earlier, though. I'll kind of get
Yeah.
myself back on track, and that's true, and that's true of any organization, though. I mean, each platoon had different personalities to it compared to each squadron, and each squadron within the regiment had a different personality, and every unit in the military has a completely different personality, and it's a lot of it's driven by history of the unit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though you personally may
really
not have
cool.
lived that history is still there with the unit, and it kind of drags along the good and bad.
Yeah. And we don't
It
have
also
as
has to
much
do
of
with a
that
lot with
on the
your
other side.
commander's disposition, and all the way up and down the chain has to do a lot with at the lower level. It has to do with the composition of the unit, or the platoon, or the squad, or the tank itself. That each tank was completely different personality wise.
And then, so do units like now that? Because I could even see like air side, there being a separation. Tank side, there there's like nomenclature separations, and so there's this, that, and the other thing. Then you have all these varied departments. Like, is because like the reason? Okay, going back to the dumb thing, because it's funny to a certain degree because it's not true, but it just shows up in weird ways. Where like you can get a bunch of soldiers to get in line in a circle in the chow hall like real easy by just saying, "Hey, you stand here." I'm like, all right, and
See a
like,
line, you get into it. I mean, that's the first step. If there's a line over there, there must be something good at the end of that.
yeah, it's insanity. Like you just see them do this shit, and you're like, "What? Who are these people?"
What else we got to stand in a fucking line, right?
But like we had this one guy. I think I told it before, but like there was this unit that was about to run overseas, and it was icy as shit. And me and my buddy were sitting there just being fat Air Force guys smoking cigarettes in a place you weren't supposed to smoke. And then this guy's like, "You guys gonna run, pussy?" And we're like, "Nah, dude, you guys shouldn't run, man. It's icy out there." And they're like, "We're not Nancy's like you fucking Air Force guys," or I'm paraphrasing thusly. And then they're like, "Forward, march, double time, march." And then someone immediately falls and their femur shoots through the fucking front of their leg. And like I've never seen a compound fractured femur from an ice slip. But like they must have done some, I don't know, it was gnarly. And then because it was so
It's got to take
icy,
a lot of effort.
the ambulance was like, because over there they had like they didn't plow the roads or salt the roads, they swept the
Dirt.
roads. So they might have just like they may well have just driven fucking zambonis up and down the street. And so like everybody walked on the rocks because it was safer than the side. Like the sidewalks were pretty much fine because we had salt for that. Like they must have had salt. I can't. But like, dude, it was so icy so often, and like so the ambulance is trying to catch up, but it's Tokyo drifting all up and down the fucking base, and like it's gonna hit the fucking guy. But luckily they like don't hit the person. Put him in the thing, and then they are immediately. That was their first day in country, and they weren't even in country. They were just on their way to somewhere else. And then they're already on a trip to Germany and probably out of the military if that thing doesn't heal well.
Did you way to get out? Where was that?
That was in Kyrgyzstan, in Bishkek.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of figured it was over in the Central Asia. I wasn't quite sure, though, where.
We were up on the big plateau where it got.
You were talking about ice. I was assuming it wasn't in my neck of the woods.
No, fuck no. Yeah, luckily I hate the heat. Luckily, I didn't end up anywhere warm. I ended up in cold place. Well, except for Arizona. Arizona was hot.
I did Iraq twice and Kuwait once.
I'm cool with that.
That was pretty warm.
I mean, it would have been cool to have gone.
Oh, yeah. Kuwait's hot as shit. I was in there, in March, and then when we were coming back in February, and it was hot as balls there both times.
We took the temperature on the flight line, and I think the hottest we got up to was like 147 or 148.
My buddy Sam was in the Navy, and she was telling me about how she was out in the Persian Gulf, and she's like, it's that hot plus the ocean. So it's like 99.9% humidity. So it's just, you're broiling out there. Ugh. I don't even know if the Navy has air conditioning. Everything. Do they?
What?
I haven't been on a boat in forever. Like, it's always been in like World War II boats. I haven't been on an actual like functioning. I'm sure they have air conditioning. They have to have climate control.
Oh, yeah.
We're not the only ones who had it, right?
Well, probably doesn't work though. I'm assuming they're just like
We're
the
not
other.
the only ones
Yeah.
who had it.
Well, at least that, yeah. Dude, well, because we used to get made fun. I got made fun of
That
by
is
the
so
Army.
arrogant on the grounds that is an offensive. No,
We were at some
that's
place
funny.
setting up tents somewhere, and this Army dude was making fun of us because we were like, "Did you guys bring ECUs?" And they're like, "What's that?" We're like, "Environmental Control Unit." And they're like, "You mean air condition?" Wayne Nancy's like, "You fuck," and they go into, "Okay, we get it, blah blah blah." And then at the end, we're like, "Yeah, no, we
Well,
just knew
yeah,
it
that
was
was
gonna be
always our
hot, dickhead."
Well, yeah,
that was always our joke with the Air Force. Like, we always say, well, Air Force guys have to live in our barracks. They get a hardship. They get hardship pay for that.
Yeah. And
Just
then
a
the,
regular
yeah,
barracks.
we
Not,
were
not
at,
talking
and then
about
that was our
overseas.
in
exact
Iraq,
same joke.
we were at Camp Adder, and whenever we had to use the latrines on the Army side of the base, it always says should have went Air Force somewhere in the stalls.
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Somebody just taking a dump, like, fuck my life. Yeah, dude, it's hilarious. It is kind of remarkable.
Well,
Like, we don't necessarily get hardship pay. We just get better BAH. They're like, nah.
Well, even my
Let's have you stay
chem
in a
school,
hotel.
we ate where the officers ate. They didn't send us to where everybody else did. We ate up where all the bigwigs and everything ate. I'm like, oh my god, we're in here with like there was one general that was always in there.
Yeah, because their food sucked. Not always. I've met like the army has like
That was
legit
at Fort
chefs as a
Washington
job.
Woods.
So we didn't
Army's got good
have,
cooks.
well, when I was in Baghdad region, we did have Army cooks cooking there because we were out in the field.
Yeah.
But when we lived at the Telfar,
Oh,
we had a huge ass.
hang on. I got an audio spike here. Give me 2 seconds to fix this. I know how to fix it, and it's gonna take
Is that
1
me?
sec. No, it's on my end. All right, give me 2 seconds.
Bring it over.
Okay, we should be back. It's I had to. It was a static thing. We're back. Sorry, folks, if you're listening and your eardrums are blown out. Yeah, my sound mixer did something. Okay, good to go. Food. Oh yeah. We had contractors too doing our
Yes.
food. It was all right.
Yeah, we did in the north when we were up in where we finally went up in Telfar. We were on a huge ass. It wasn't even a forward operating base. It was like I don't even know what to call it. It was more like an Air Force base. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
Our perimeter was so large. I'm surprised we never got infiltrated. It was massive.
Yeah.
And we did have contractors. They were all Indian, which always kind of made me feel bad when I asked for a hamburger.
Just crying. Single tear. You're like, fuck.
And we actually had, this is the fucked up thing about it over there, was we had surf and turf. I think it was Sundays.
Yeah, we did it
They had
Fridays where I was
shrimp
there.
and steak every Sunday. It's so weird. It's like, how is this happening?
We had
I mean, that
lobster
all
where we were
ended
at.
when we moved out into town permanently.
Yeah.
We were at the FOB for 6 months, and then the other 4 months I was there, we were out in the city.
Yeah.
It's just like we were living out there. So that's that's when we didn't get Army cooks. We just had to have a supply of food come in every day, which was crazy as shit. But luckily we had pacified the town at that point, so we weren't getting attacked every day or anything like that. So it was logical to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not bad. Usually what am I trying to say? I forgot. I'm having a stroke. Stroking. Do. Something about food. Food.
Surf and turf.
Pork chop.
Oh yeah, we had lobster, and
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
we do shrimp.
We got
Oh.
crab leg.
But kind of the idea of that, because I come from that side on the Air Force, is we definitely we already know that we spoil our own people beyond anything reasonable. And so like one of our goals in those units is because we're so tired of the rest of the like spoiled Air Force people, is that we definitely put a huge effort into making sure that like anybody who comes through gets the gold standard of like this is how we do shit. And so like That's why on like most of our transition bases and those rotation bases, you're gonna have that surf and turf thing. You're gonna have a birthday meal every month. You're gonna have like all kinds of crazy shit where all the transient population and the permanent party population do a commingle and have a karaoke and all that kind of behaviors there. Plus, it's also like it's a gates of hell kind of thing, like where the carnival just outside the gates of hell. So you get to have your little rest when you come back, and you get to go a little nutty before you go in. But I mean, it
Yeah.
works. It's effective for the troops. They like it, or they don't
Do
bitch
3
about
beers
it.
a day.
Yeah, man. Like, well, where we were at, we could only have 2 beers, but they were those like Baltica number nines that were like this big. You're like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Were they near
grabbed
beers
the
or
Fosters.
No, these were legit Russian beers.
really? We only had near beers in country for obvious reasons.
Oh yeah.
No,
Correct.
we did too. It was just like the well, Kuwait. Any in
O'Doul's. We had O'Doul's.
polyethylene flying in and
Heineken.
out of there.
We had Baltica, and Balticas are all numbered, and the number is equal to their alcohol percentage. And then it different kinds. Like the 9 was a Russian porter. I forget what the 8 was. There was a 7, a 6, a 5, all the way down to 1, and then a 0. And so like a lot of people would have the 0 or 1. I don't know if we carried a 2. I know we had the 9. That sold like fucking gangbusters. People were like, "Get me fucked up, please."
We had a couple of guys figure out the trick though, because there is a little bit of alcohol in near beer. It's like 0.005% or something like that.
Just
So all you do is you sit in the hobby all day. You get yourself really dehydrated, and then you pound 6 beers, and you're good to go.
You could. I mean, you could. Could you distill it? Is that an option, distilling beer?
Oh
No, it's because you're so dehydrated. You're only getting that 0.05%, but it's enough when you're already dehydrated, because that's what a lot of alcohol does to you, is it dehydrates you. Process.
At the base I was at in Iraq, because the army figured out you could freeze it, and then the alcohol won't freeze.
Nice.
So people were buying like 30 and 40 bottles.
Dude, it was wild. Huh? Like we had booze snuck on base by a number of different parties, and it was never great, but it was cheap to free depending on where you were getting it. And but it was like the demand was there. Like there was a demand for pills. There's a demand for. But then on the other hand too, like what's remarkable is that like that's not new. That was there in the Civil War. That was there in World War I. That was there in World War II. Like everybody's been did.
Well, yeah, I mean, shit.
I mean, you kind of need
in
to.
Germany, they still had. Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
I was going to say, in Germany, still there's. When I was there, at least, I don't know if they still have. We still had ration cards in 2002.
Oh shit.
2003. Yeah, and the ration card had cigarettes, hard liquor, and coffee.
Nice.
And gas. I think I don't remember if the ration cards were on gas or not, but yeah, I mean, it was so weird.
I remember people in Spengalum saying that. I went to Spengalum for 2 weeks of training, and they were talking about stuff like that.
So you just get free booze and smokes?
No. It was. Oh, you go to your class 6. I don't know what they call it in the Air Force. So probably class 6 as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because we use AFES for the same stuff. Army and Air Force shares that.
If you got like a bottle of liquor, you had to get a little stamp on your ration card.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because what would happen is people would buy a shit ton of liquor and they go sell it on the economy to the Germans because it wasn't taxed or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was over there, I can't remember how. I mean, it's been so long now. I don't remember how much cigarettes. Cigarettes were cheap as shit on post. They were like $4 or something like that.
Yeah. Like
and I don't remember how much they were on the economy. Probably not much more. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't that big of a difference anymore. The coffee thing was the thing that really weirded me out, though.
We didn't have a. I think we had a limit on how many you could buy, but I know the contractors. I think the contractors in town were allowed to buy smokes and take them into town. Like they weren't allowed to take too much shit. Like, but they were allowed, like, if they worked in
Yeah,
the
everybody's
BX, they
got
could
their
shop
hustle.
there. Because we had like people who like lived in town who worked on base.
Oh yeah.
Like, not a whole lot of people, but like, I don't know, maybe a third of the
Probably the
contract
married couple.
was people who lived
Yeah,
in.
are you talking about nationals or
No, these
Americans?
were TCNs. Like, well, the host
Oh.
country nationals. So HSNs, HNN. I don't know.
HCN?
HCN. There we go. They're the people who lived there in the town that we
Okay.
had base in. They were cool as shit too. But yeah, every once
By
in a
the
while.
way, the weed Steve is smoking tonight is
Oh, what is it? Oh, Gorilla Diesel? Diesel Gorilla? Gorilla Diesel. I think that's what it is.
and I got Papa OG.
Yeah. Are you getting fucked up at all, Steve? What are you doing?
Just drinking beer.
Nice.
Couple beers.
Keep it in real. America. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I kind of like, I used to be a
Oh,
beer person
used to
pretty
play
heavily.
that play that in the tank all the time.
Dude, I
Loved
used to
it.
say that shit all the time to my girlfriend. I would always be like, I will never die. And it was fucking, because like that scene is so fucking, because that immediately goes in to the puppet sex scene. And so that's why.
I was so bummed. So that actually came out while I was over there. I got the CD before it came out though. It was so weird. Like the CD released like 6 months or something like that before. Well, it didn't play in the theaters over in Germany. That's what it was. So
Gotcha.
I had to wait for it to come out on DVD.
Yeah.
But I got the CD, so I knew all the songs and everything like that. And I got the movie shipped over. I found out it's not the unrated version. The only thing that they remove is the puppet sex scene.
Oh,
That's the
man.
only thing.
Dude, that's
not
the
in
best
there.
part. The puppet like
really?
poops on her. It's so insane.
Took me forever to actually see that.
Dude, that is the craziest movie ever. I love it so much. But
Oh,
yeah.
that movie got just ran through the whole unit. Just I can't believe I actually got it back. That's how I went through like everybody there.
I somehow got into Korean movies. I haven't followed up on it too much. I've seen probably like 5 or 6 more since then. But my squadron commander overseas was he was stationed in Korea, so he was like super into their movies. And he had us watch Old Boy in the base theater, and it was fucking intense. And I was like, okay, I will follow up on this. Like, it is kind of wild the shit you get introduced to. Like, you know, in the military, like, you meet people all the time. And it's just the same when you're deployed. Like, if you're deployed with a different unit or... Because it's more likely in the Air Force that you'll be deployed with a different unit. Usually in the Army and the Marines, it seems like you guys kind of stick together. Same Navy, you're all in one fucking boat. But, like, in the Air Force, they'll send us off, like, 1 or 2 at a time sometimes. And then... Because our whole deployment method is based on being able to consolidate every individual part into... Like, the entire Air Force is based on transformers. And, like, we don't need a particular person. We just need X number of people. And so we just start filling slots sometimes. Like, we have set rotations and training schedules and all that's put into place. But because we have that capability to fill in slots of 1s and 2s, there's a lot of, like, 1s and 2 deployments that are interesting little jobs. But, yeah, I was my only person from my unit. And, like, that was interesting. Just all the crazy people I got to meet over there under that stressful situation. Like, you know, in a lot of cases, you know the people you're training with. You're going over there, and then you serve with them, and then you come back and you spend some time with them. Like, I went over there by myself, went through all this weird shit, and then just went home. And, like, I've talked to a few since then, but there's, like, a weird separation there. But I don't know, it's probably a good thing in some cases. Not that I wouldn't like to be more connected to these people, but, like, it can also hurt at times, being that connected to people. What up, Iggy?
Hey, aren't you supposed to mention something?
Oh, not yet. That's getting figured out.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll get there. But I know what you're talking about, bro. We will get that figured out for sure. Hopefully, ideally.
Shit figured
We'll see.
out.
You know, I'm always late at shit. Semper late. Semper latte. That's me. Always kind of on time, which means not on time. Oh man, our stream health is all fucked up. Hey gang, I'm watching it, and hopefully you're watching. But it says we're about a half hour in here, and the stream's current bit rate is crazy, and then I'm just getting a big spinny circle. On the recording side, we're fine. We're still good. We're still having a good conversation. And even if the stream is fucked up, at least it'll catch up at some point, or it seems to coalesce itself. Because I've seen it do this before, and then usually, like, so if you're watching and it's all crazy, give it a minute, or wait till it's over, and then just kind of watch the upload, and it should kind of hold itself together. Though, sometimes it does cut a little off the front, so if you notice there's a little bit of silence in the beginning, it's because I'm trying to adjust for that, because the YouTube stream, like, it'll sometimes cut a couple seconds to a minute off of the front end of what you're doing. So, anyway, back to business. So Steve, you do the debates, if you will, and they're an interesting area. But I wonder. So, like, we were talking about the past debates, and how we're not going to talk about these debates. But sort of like in talking about, not quite debating. Like, let's talk about the idea of going around these idiots. And, like, because I think there's skills involved in, like, what you're doing, or attempting to do at least, that help us go around these people by sort of like, if not coming up, even if good ideas aren't being presented, like, better ideas end up being developed.
Sure, I know what you're getting at, and I think that the main issue is that when folks are having, I don't want to necessarily call it an intellectual debate, but a debate about a specific issue. The debates I've done so far, I've only done 4 live debates, and that's included porn, which I really shouldn't have been part of. I kind of got dragged into that one.
That's how they all do, buddy.
Yeah. I did plenty of research prior, though, just to make sure that I knew what I was up at. And trust me, it was a very painful 24 hours that I had to prepare. But luckily, I'm still standing, and I don't think I'm impotent yet.
Good.
So I'm good to go there. The second debate that I did was, what was that? It was about who should not be named. Response to COVID, and I was actually on the affirmative side. I somewhat changed my tune a little bit, not completely, but I was kind of for the federal response. I want to stress that I was more towards the actual governmental response rather than the specific individual's role in that. But I made that very clear at the beginning of the debate as well. And then I did 2 debates on cancel culture specifically. One with me against one other individual, and then 1 or 2 against 2 was involved. And those 2 I really enjoyed because I was actually prepared for the second one, at least. I wasn't that prepared for the first one. I had about 24 hours again to prepare for it. Yeah. I'm kind of a pinch hitter on there. They kind of utilize me when they got nowhere else. When they got nowhere else to go, they're like, Steve, do you give a shit about this topic? And they're like, yeah, I guess. Like, okay, well, you want to debate? It was like, sure. So like, can you do it tomorrow? It was like, dude, I got to go to bed and work tomorrow. I'm going to have 3 hours literally to prep for this. Yeah. And I like being prepared for these things. But I mean, as long as it's a topic that I'm at least semi-familiar with, the channel that I those debates on, it's called Modern Day Debates, if anybody's interested. They do a lot of religious debates, which I'm not personally interested in. I'm interested in the topic, but there's no way that I would debate that topic myself. It's because I'm not informed enough, and most of my arguments would be from feelings rather than any kind of logical, rhetorical knowledge.
I think a lot of times too in those cases, like, the questions are stupid. It's a lot of little, like, in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the computer comes back and says, like, 72. And they're like, God damn it. This thing's supposed to tell us the answer to everything and the meaning of universe and life and everything. And he's like, yeah, it's 72, bro. What do you want from me? And, like,
and
Like I had somebody today, I was kind of bored and somebody picked up or somebody called and it was a survey thing. And one of the questions they had was, are you pro-life or pro-choice? And just in the moment, I was like, that's a weird fucking question. Am I pro-life or pro-choice? Am I for life or choice? So does that mean I am for, or is the other choice death and no choice? So this isn't a fair question to begin with. This isn't a reasonable position to even fucking start with. This idea of am I pro-choice or pro-life? But that's also something you see in like why we need to go around these idiots. It's because they phrase shit like that. You are obviously pro both, no matter what the fuck you think. You could be against abortion, but you're still pro-choice because you want the choice to not get one. You want the choice to vote for that to not be a thing, even like, so you still like the idea of choosing shit. You're not anti-choosing shit, and you're also not anti-living on the other end of it. Like, it's such a dumb shit argument, but it's because of the syntax, and like, or not the syntax, but the vocabulary. Like, it's just not strong enough vocabulary to make any kind of fucking real sense. And like,
There's no nuance in it either.
Yeah, and same thing happens with religion a lot. Where like, was Noah right? And you're like, the answer is no. And what? No. What is that even? Maybe he wasn't a real dude, but also, what are we talking about?
And that's really one of the interesting things. And honestly, I mean, I personally identify as a Christian, even though I'm more intellectually theist.
Oh, I think Iggy dropped. He'll come back in a moment.
All right.
He's a part of it.
Yeah, I personally, that's how I identify. But I give the biblical literalists more shit than I give most atheists because I'm just like, God, you're making us look like idiots. Come on, stop it.
The Earth is
Slow down.
6,000 years old.
Let's think about what you're saying here. Like some of them talk about giants and Neophims and just crazy ass shit. It's like,
and it's what spawns
you don't have to take everything literally. That's not the requirement at all.
And it's what spawns the literal atheists who are just as shitty, who are like, there is no God and blah blah blah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them on that end too. That,
but
and I mean that's why we're talking over each other. Go ahead.
Oh no, but I mean like it's a natural response too. Like if this like uber theist movement comes out, then an anti-theist movement's going to come out. And but like at no point there is no geography appointed to heaven. There is no physical, like there is no dude with a beard. Like if you actually read the fucking book and learn about God and Jesus and all that good stuff.
A dude with a beard?
Even as well, hey now. Yeah. So well, Nick. Because like the idea is that you are a vehicle of God, I would say, or a vehicle of at least the divine spirit, and that you should be a caretaker of that divine spirit. And like that seems to be the gist of Christianity to me, I would think. Like if I were to boil it down into like, what does it mean?
Yeah. Hit it. And yeah, that's one of the interesting things. Why I've actually enjoyed participating in those debates, but being privy to them and listening to them, because it makes it think, or it makes it think more, essentially. And it makes it think about arguments in a lot more nuanced fashion. So as I was saying, I give the literalists more shit, even though I'm probably closer to their beliefs than most atheists. But when I go into those debates, I'm not looking to see who's right or who's wrong, because I already have my opinion.
Right.
And no one's really going to change that in this specific debate or anything like that. My positions are pretty locked in stone unless I personally find a way to change them through my own research. No one on that channel is going to be able to change my mind. They're not philosophers, or some of them are philosophers, but I wouldn't call them. They're not like Socratic. Level. I can't name a philosopher off the top of my head, a modern philosopher, but they're not super high level folks.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, even I could proclaim myself a living Buddha, and still, if we pulled it off in a Zoom call, that's fucking horseshit. That's not a thing that can happen. Like, it is like all of the experience has to be had by like you need to have it. It's not anything that can be handed to you. that like
Yeah.
feeling.
And kind of getting back, because I just want to kind of wrap the point up as quickly so we can move forward here. It gives you an opportunity to really look at how arguments and how debates are conducted, because you're coming into it from essentially a neutral position, even though you have a position already. As long as you're open-minded and you're more listening to the points that each side makes, whether they make sense, whether they're respectful. I mean, I'll be honest, I've seen some pretty wild debates on there where like things such as doxing have occurred.
Oh, shit.
And I will say that I have never seen a debate more insane last night's compared to anything I've seen on that channel. That was how bad it was. Yeah. But anyways, it gives you an opportunity to really formulate how arguments are made and what works and what doesn't. Because if you're only looking internally and saying, well, I know how to make an argument, I know how that works. It's like I've learned plenty from folks that I disagree with on how to formulate an argument and how to make it work. Just last night, there was a guy that I vehemently disagree with on pretty much everything. He was actually on the affirmative side that I agreed with in the context of the debate. And it actually hurt me a little bit agreeing with him throughout the debate, because I really just dislike his philosophical outlook on the world. It was very, very bizarre. But that gave me the opportunity to say, well, he's a good debater. I mean, he researches his facts. He knows how to put those facts in context, and he knows how to present them. And he also knows how to deconstruct the other person's argument. The other person's arguments were mostly based on Marxism, and it was almost screen. You could see through it like easy. And I've seen him debate plenty of times. I already knew the route he was going to go down. But
it's pretty quick to disassemble too.
You get the sense of how people debate and where they're going to go with their line of logic. I mean, you can almost tell that in the beginning of most people's introductions, whether they've got a well-formulated argument, whether they're bringing facts and data to that argument, whether they're prepared and at the very least, and whether they've got a well-formulated thought.
Reading a pamphlet, like.
Yeah, I mean,
there seems to be
there's plenty of people that do that. They just read something online and they're like, "Oh, I agree with that." It's like, well, no, that's not how it works.
Because I think that has to be where that level of because you see, I at least see people say stupid shit with like this. Like there's this amazing Zach Galifianakis bit where he does these like quick impressions, and so he does an impression of an overconfident illiterate, and he goes, I told you I can't read. And like that's like the balls on these fuckers. And like they're saying this dumb shit of like I was watching the second debate, I think, on the cancel culture, and there was this notion, like what blows my mind about social justice warriors is that social justice means justice outside of the judiciary. So they're saying that they're extrajudicial warriors. So that's the same thing as lynching, extrajudicial execution, extrajudicial punishment, any tarring and feathering. So they're saying that that's what they're supporting. But at no point do they at no point are they honest with themselves with it, saying that that's what they support. But then they're saying rather than tar and feather these people or lynch them, they're saying let's take their jobs and take their whatever, because even though a justice system exists, we don't think it's good enough. It's not like, even though I don't have any personal stake in this, I still am owed something for having heard about this event. Like it's like, I understand, like, don't get me wrong. People need to be treated equally and fairly, and everything needs to be better. Yes. But like the social justice warrior thing is a problem because it's extrajudicial justice. It's lynch mob shit. And it's not very effective.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that one of the things I always try to bring into my debates, and this is something that I'm going to try to do going forward as well, because I try to it's called steel manning the other person's argument, essentially looking for if I was going to agree with this, how would I agree with that position?
Right.
And that's how I can cover. And this is kind of a problem with my debate style, because I'm not as aggressive or as firm on a position as some people are. They're never willing to give an inch or give any ground. They're saying, well, no, cancel culture is wrong. It sucks. You guys are idiots. You all deserve to, cancel yourselves, or I don't know how you
do about. Because I made the joke. I'm like, so they're suggesting cancel
essentially
cancel culture.
Yeah. And no, I mean, there's the way I went about it is I identified, well, there are some utilities to it, but the problem is that when it comes out of control, you got people boarding the trains to gulags,
right?
And it's been some of the shit that I've heard people say on that channel is just crazy. The debate yesterday, the guy that they were arguing Black Lives versus All Lives Matter, and the guy that was doing the All Lives Matter thing brought up a ton of statistics with him, a lot. And I was like, man, I wish I was paying more attention to this debate, because he's actually bringing up some really good points. It's not an argument that I know too much about. I know where I emotionally, but I don't have like a whole lot of data or anything like that to back up what my positions are. That I always identify when I'm not knowledgeable about something enough to really, throw my head into the ring on it.
Right.
You could take a little time to get that information. But anyways, he was the other guy, and by the way, the dude that was on the All Lives Matter side, he is not a right winger whatsoever. I mean, he is probably.
Was he just kind of like?
I don't even know his politics, to be honest. I would say he's probably more left, based on other conversations that I've heard him in.
Because that's an interesting thing too with these debate channels, that some people who listen or watch may not understand right away that like these aren't necessarily these people's opinions. It's just like these get set up kind of like wrestling matches, and you get assigned a side and you go for it in some cases.
Well, it seems to be that most people that are debating a position on the channel are actually vested in that position, from what I've seen.
They should mix it up then. It's more fun.
There are some people that have trolled. I will, but they get weeded out pretty quickly, because there's the question and answer session at the back end of the discussion, which usually, and then plus the side chat itself is usually able to identify as someone that's essentially trolling or polling. Is it called polling? Polling a position.
These kids are crazy.
Yeah, and in that context, I think both of them were actually supporting the position that they were supporting.
Yeah, it seemed like, I mean,
he called him a racist, just like the debate yesterday,
right?
For utilizing statistics and just not agreeing that racism is systematic. And like, how are you even supposed to argue against something like that when you're automatically called a racist for not agreeing with the other side's position? It's untenable. You can't discuss it.
Right. It does back somebody, because it's also there kind of on purpose, because it changes the argument. And it's not that the person who's saying the other thing's argument is weak. They have a much stronger argument to push, but they don't have the tools to do so. So then they just go, you're racist. And then now you have to deflate that, instead of like, it's just kind of like jingling your keys in certain cases, where, because it's turned into that, it's like a rhetorical weapon in a certain way, where it just turns the conversation into something else. They could say, well, this person's, pretty kind and considerate and caring. And they go, well, they're racist though. And you go, no shit. And like, I don't know why people are just, I don't understand that part of people where they're like, really? And they just run with it. Like,
my opponent did that to me a little bit in the first debate, because I was referring to the mob as the mob, and he kind of took offense to that, and I didn't really think anything of it. It was just like, well, if you don't want me to call him a mob, I'll fucking call him a bunch of folks. I don't give a shit. Right. Now that I know that probably calling him a bunch of folks is probably more racist than calling him a mob, I guess. I don't know. The language changes so quickly nowadays that.
Well, and that's part of it too. that's another like that's a game kind of on both sides. Like it gets attributed to
Oh, yeah.
lefties more so because
Well, it used to be on the right, so much
yeah,
crazy as well too. I
but
mean,
they just changed
you
the
had
definition
handbooks
of a
and shit like
word.
that.
You know, they change a word to mean so all of a sudden it doesn't mean the same thing anymore. Or like, oh well, you know, technically, these people aren't actually white, or these people aren't actually black, or these people aren't actually poor, or these people like they can start to make these weird fucking distinctions that aren't there because it just goes off into some weird rhetorical space because mostly they're just trying to justify some nonsense like or like fit some bullshit into their plan that doesn't fit into their plan. And, and it's not
Well,
like and it's
yeah, I
unfortunate
think
too when that
it's the
happens.
issues that take offense to too much nowadays,
Well,
and
and they take
and you know, I'll
pride
be
in it.
honest. I mean, I took offense to being offensive, which is kind of like bullshit now that I think about it. But
Yeah.
it was in the moment I was trying to have a debate. I wasn't trying to, you know, ensure that I mean, I'm not a super strong debater yet. I've only been doing this for a couple of months
Yeah, I
and
got enough
only
friends.
very
We're good.
limited effect. So I wasn't able to catch the rhetorical spin that was being launched. I mean, I was like, okay, I'll cooperate because I don't give a fuck.
Right.
I got more important things to worry about than this little word, essentially.
Yeah.
If you called me a racist, I would have been a lot. It would have been a lot different if you called me something like that. Then it would have been a different conversation. But luckily, he never went quite that direction, and we were
Well,
mostly cordial throughout the entire thing.
and
Other than that little slip up, I guess.
it goes to the example too of what you're saying of like it's still being beneficial. Like even if it's amateur kind of hour at times, or even if it's professional level at times, or regardless of the nature of it, it's still interesting to see like just what's out there. How are people talking to one another? What do because in some cases if these people are coming from specific camps, what language are they using in that camp and how does that language differ from like everywhere else? Because there's all kinds of words to excuse all kinds of things and there's all kind like there's it's madness and it I get it because people are trying to do good things and then people who are coming alongside of that and spoiling it. And so you can't shit on your own movement because you still want it to work. And then you're also afraid if you get rid of these psychos, like that's going to be more trouble than just hopefully they go away. But unfortunately, they don't. You have to like get rid of the psychos pretty quickly, or at least let them know they're not welcome. Tell them to go do their own thing. But because like you know all
And
these
that's
rioters and mobs, they're not the protesters. They're not the people who organize in churches and say we're going to do this, we're going to do that. These are people who get on Facebook from the suburbs and like bus in a lot of times. Like well-meaning but ill-informed, ill-trained, just not ready for it, not the right person for it, but they want to be so fucking bad. And like that's where that anger comes out of like I'm supposed to be a good person. How does this work?
well, everybody looks for a cause, I think, and that's something that I've been hearing a lot on, I guess, the uh, intellectual right, I should say, that a lot of folks have with with the decision. And again, I'm not trying to get into religion or anything like that, but a lot of folks don't have that purpose in life that they used to. I mean, we found it through the military
Right.
at one point. You're finding it in different locations now.
Yeah.
I'm finding it in different ways as well too. But a lot of people don't find or aren't able to formulate their own purpose in the world, so they gravitate towards movements. And especially younger folks, you know, you're a lot crazier in your 20s than you are in your 30s, and a lot crazier in your 30s than you are in your 40s.
Yeah, and it also
Just
looks like a
you get tempered
shitload.
as
Like,
you get older, and you get less physically able to kick ass and take punches in the face.
yeah, if I didn't
Uh,
have a walker, I'd be out there too, man. It looks like a lot of fucking fun. Like, I get that part too, but
when
like,
I heard,
hey,
you know, when I heard about the riots up in Scottsdale, I was like, "Fuck, man! If I had known that was going on, I would have been up there hanging out. I just wanted to watch. You know, I
dude,
didn't want to participate in it, but you know, it'd be
I
kind of
got a
like shit.
bullhorn just in case. I would play the song. Uh, okay, I'm gonna tell you. So here was my plan for counter protesting. I won't tell you who I was going to counter protest. Actually, I was going to
I,
counter protest all the protests. That was my theory. Is I was going to turn the protest into something else, and I thought I could do that. And I haven't tried this yet, but So steal this idea. We talk about this all the time. We have dumb ideas. Give this a shot and steal it. My thought was because there's passion happening. These people are feeling something, expressing something. They're fucking that fire exists. But like you know and I know, being leaders of people who've been in those situations, you can do things with that force. You can move that fire and change that fire. And so my thought was get a flatbed truck full of speakers and play Prince's or the artist formerly known as Prince's Pussy Control loud as fucking possible, and then just watch all those people like bah, 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 and like turn it into something else, and not turn it into anything that it's not supposed to be. Still, they can still have their signs and be heard, but they don't have to be cussing at each other. Like, let's play some fucking tunes. Let's do a battle of the bands. Let's hear some bluegrass versus some fucking something else. I don't know. But like, because what also like upsets me is how on the like in the same vein, and I don't even know if it's connected, but like it's to say it's unoriginal is unfair, but like the fact that it only got us what it got us, and it will only continue to get us what it's gotten us, which is why innovation is critical, even in the common protest. It needs to be innovated. Otherwise, you will continue to get the results we already have. Because it can only get you what it gets you. It won't get you anything more.
Well, and that's the thing. The innovation through the internet has kind of created its own beast. I mean, cancel culture existed before the internet and in certain iterations, but it's never been as accessible as it is now.
Right.
There were so many points that I'm just starting to realize that I didn't even remember about that were involved in that entire concept.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that lady that made a few very bad Twitter jokes about going to Africa.
Yeah.
And by the time she landed, she was fired. I completely forgot about that. And that was a huge deal when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, she wasn't poor, I guess, but she wasn't,
well, like,
wasn't a celebrity
and
either.
The people on the like pro cancel side kept saying, well, this is a representative of the company. And it's like, no, they're not. That's the PR person. Not everyone you hire is a representative of the company. Like, you have standards and procedures, but humans are humans, and they can do what, like, who knows? I don't check their bedroom. I don't check their living room. I don't check their Twitter. Like, that's not my fucking responsibility. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and that is going to be a difficult thing for corporations and free speech to be able to handle. I mean, the right's always said, well, private corporations got the right to hire you and fire you at will.
Yeah.
Your free speech rights are not protected by the company. They're only protected by the government.
Right.
But
well, my company protects, like, we abide by the Constitution. That's pretty much that's our corporate policy for the most part, until we get like
and I mean, there should always be a point, but unfortunately, sometimes the backlash is just so intense that you got to do boycotts, and what's it more worth? What is it worth? Profits or this one person's job that costs us a whole shitstorm,
and the problem
that
too
probably
is, like,
shouldn't have done what they did.
You get these like slivers of percentages of people who are these like boy who cried wolf cases, and then that gives the rest of the community the ability just to assume every boy is crying wolf, or like in a lot of corporate settings and even in the military, there was a lot of time where there was this assumption, not always, let's be very clear about that, but some people were of a mindset that if a female was reporting sexual assault, it was because she was trying to get back at the boss. And that's because like 6 broads did that throughout history. Probably like more than that statistically. It had to be at least, I don't know, 25 or just numbers wise.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
But like, that one story.
We're too deep into that concept, but
right.
I get you.
But that one story develops that stigma. And like in so many cases, it's not the one it's the same thing with the cops. Like the problem with the cops is like there's a number of things. Their training sucks. Their budget sucks. Like defund them, but refund them real quickly, I guess. whatever it means or doesn't mean. Like, I think yes, educators should be funded more so than law enforcement, but I don't like. You're not gonna get a better situation by having them broke because they're gonna have dog shit training, dog shit equipment, and then they're gonna end up having.
They're
dog
going to
shit
be
troops.
pissed off. I mean, if you're getting paid $20 an hour to patrol downtown Detroit,
Right, and if you
your life on the
also,
line every day, you're not going to be loving life either. You're going to be stressed out as fuck,
yeah, you're not gonna have an
worried
interest
about
in it.
bills at home, plus getting shot at work.
Right, if you have to have a second job or some shit, like it ain't worth it. But it's difficult. Like I think
There's a lot of see that's the issue. I think a lot of folks are having with there I go with those racially charged terms again.
how is folks charged? Folks is an English word
I
to
think I heard
describe.
somewhere that it's supposed to like debase a group of people,
Well, tell
but
them
I
to fuck
don't know.
themselves because it
Even
doesn't.
though I'm not really like referring to an actual group of people here,
Yeah, no,
but
folks
anyways,
refers to folks and
um,
shit. I'm a hillbilly. I say folks all
essentially,
the goddamn time.
I'm referring to all Americans here, all people that jump their balls into the political arena of any
Yeah,
sort of stripe.
that horse shit. We're not doing
Whether
that in our
whether
company.
they're actually running for office or whether they're just commenting or just
It's all some weird
participating in.
fucking kabuki though. Like they don't mean it. There's always a videotape of some senator saying the N word or somebody groping this or somebody doing that or like it's all kabuki horse shit of people pretending they're Leave It to Beaver so you'll vote for them or buy their nonsense. Like
Yeah.
one of the like we don't mind embarrassing ourselves like in our company with our podcast with anything we do because at a minimum there's some fucking integrity there. And I think like that's what's lacking so much in these people. It's like there's no like you sit them aside and they go, "Oh no, I'm really like this." Well, why don't you be that up there? What the fuck? Like, I don't know.
I think that's still a generational issue right there. And I think that's shifting to a degree, but it's going to take some time.
I get the
I
whole
mean,
like, freak in the
yeah,
sheets and, whatever in the streets, but like there's also like integrity is integrity. Like and some of these people have demonstrable acts of integrity where like they are closeted homosexuals and then they're passing laws against like, there are I'm not going to name names because I don't have names to name, but I know there are some names to
I
name.
know there was the one guy that did the foot tapping in Minneapolis. I remember that one
There's that fella.
that you're probably thinking.
Google ladybugs. That's hilarious. There's a few out there, and they're all anti this and anti that, and it's just because they're trying to get elected. And then if you sat them down in a room, they'd probably be trying to grab your leg and call you sweetheart and this thing. You're like, well, bud. And like, just be that, dude. No one gives a shit anymore. And yes, at a time they did, and where you live, maybe some 900 people still do. But like, what blows my mind is like how cowardice is so rewarded in this country, and like true heroism and true bravery is just shit on. And like, you have people pretending they're brave and pretending they're heroes, and like it upsets me as a veteran kind of because I know real brave people and I know real heroes and like these fuckers ain't it. And it's not the shit on what they want to accomplish. What they want to accomplish is very much desirable and doable. I'll say that much. But the methodology that's being used is just fucking asinine. And then to be so bold about it is the same as like, I told you I can't read.
Well, it's creating unrealistic expectations for the demands that you're attempting to foster. Um, I mean, there's something to be said about being bold and wanting to create, a better world, but there's also something to be said about being realistic about the world you live in.
Mm.
And if you want to have the goals or the change that you want, you have to operate within the civilized in the world. You can't just Harry Potter wish the world the way you want it so it can function the way that you eventually want it.
No.
That's why I have an issue with libertarians the same way as I do with Marxists. Especially a lot of anarchists. It's like, no, I mean, we did have anarchy once. It didn't work.
Right.
That's
And
why we got
anarchy,
civilization.
because what's amazing is that anarchy solidifies into libertarianism, which then solidifies into a free market economy. Because you have anarchy, and then you have people going, hang on, this is a bit nutty. Let's at least have like 6 rules. And then that's where you get libertarians. And then you get somebody going like, hey, you guys are cheating the fucking rules. And then that's where regulation comes in. And that's more of the sort of regulated free market economy that we have now. Where like these things are like, that's what pisses me off too, is like, let's do ancient shit. Let's do ancient shit. Like, let's go to the moon, motherfucker. What is this like caveman repeat nonsense of like, let's do Marxism. They'd failed every time. It was developed in the 1930s by a guy who, well, let's not go into his record on the N-word because it is aggressive. And also English was not his first language, so it's also surprising. But like, and that's just, you know, okay, personally that guy sucked, but the idea itself sucks, and it's been proven to suck. Now, yes, there's ideas that they were getting at. Like, the reason Marxism itself sucks is because of that material history thing, because it also calls inferior races.
Scientific history and
yeah, it has immaterial history, which is the
well, there's a shit ton wrong with it, especially as an analysis of history itself.
Well, because he analyzes history, specifically omitting black people, Arabs, Jews, Mexicans. He didn't think Mexicans were real, kind of. He knew Mexicans existed, but he thought they were a mix of blacks and Jews. And like, so socialism was invented by those fucking guys. And like, part of their idea was these idiots are too weak to govern themselves. One of Marx's comments on the American conquest of the Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, I believe that was all at that time. Was that on one fell swoop? No, that was 2 swoops, because we got Texas and then we got Arizona and New Mexico.
Yeah, Texas came in it came into the Union in 1848. I don't remember when it
dipped out for a sec.
It declared independence. Well, it declared independence from Mexico. It had its sovereignty for a time, and then became part of the United States. And I want to say it was 48, but I'm not 1848, but I'm not 100% sure on that. My history is a little, it's a little out. Not, I wouldn't say outdated, but it's a little rough. I haven't read a general history in quite a long time. That's why my next book, after I'm done with reading what I've got, is going to be Anthony Zinn's People's History of America, which is a Marxist outlook of American history.
It is. I'm
diving. I'm going deep. I'm going deep, man. Well, it's going to be I'm probably never going to be more angry at reading a book since I've read the Communist Manifesto. So
that book was, well, that's where, like, in Das Kapital, that's where he makes the point that the Mexicans were lucky the Americans conquered them so they could be governed by sensible white people.
Yeah, I haven't read Das Kapital because it's a little longer. It
sucks.
I've never had the time to type, and I've heard it's more.
It's a bit more technical.
Dense, yeah. I guess is the way.
Yeah. It's a lot, but it's also based on the Victorian era science. But like, you know, our current economic models are based on Victorian nonsense. The capitalist, the communist, the socialist, the this, the that, the blah, 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 blah. Robots are coming. They're taking all of our jobs. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Like, I had an argument with one guy where he's like, well, it's all about controlling the means of production. It's like, no, it's not. Amazon's the richest company in the world and doesn't produce a goddamn thing. What are they producing? What means of production are they controlling?
Oh, I can't. I wonder how
it's logistics, baby.
How much they've gone up since the pandemic hit. I mean, I working from home, I hear the fucking UPS, FedEx, and what's the other one?
DHL.
Shit, there's another one out there.
The German one.
I'm probably thinking of the United States Postal Service.
Oh,
I forgot about those fuckers.
Oh yeah,
I hear them outside like 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah, man,
dropping packages around here, and I was like, Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
I keep and I know. I mean, I walk out every once in a while. There's Amazon package there's Amazon package there. I mean, shit.
Hand over fist, dude.
I don't buy a whole lot of shit, but I bought this microphone off of Amazon. I bought the camera off of Amazon.
Yeah. Dude, there's so much shit in this house.
Off of Amazon.
Yeah, you can get toilet paper on there, deodorant. Like, I could go to Meijer, and even then I could go to a smaller place. But then I'm like, because I'm a dirty cripple. Yeah, dude, it's wild. Like, and okay, so the counter argument to that too was that, well, they're producing. What did they say they were controlling the production of? Like, that was, but then like, well, it means something else, and then like, it went to that like double speak of like, okay, there's a new definition now, so that I'm still right. So now production means this, and it's like, no. You said that whoever controls the means of production will be the
Oh, you're
richest
going back to
person.
the Marxist. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
and like,
I just want to make sure I was
so
tracking.
there's this pause of like either we reset the definitions, or it's true, or it's not, or like it doesn't like that whole means of production thing was specific to a factory economy, and an economy that is only going to function on factories. And that's where this whole worker thing comes. And like, yeah, but we don't fucking need them anymore. There's like 8, 9 factories, and all those jobs are going to be robots. So let's go back. Like, we don't need unions as much as we need guilds anymore. Like, we need more artists and poets, because the robots are going to come take all the other fucking jobs. All your Uber drivers, all your fucking lawnmowers.
Oh yeah, we, the area that I live in here is a way more test area.
Yeah,
I see those fuckers all the time.
dude.
I haven't seen I don't think I've seen an unmanned one yet.
It's
I think they still got people in them.
And like what's coming next is I shouldn't say most, but many of the jobs that we have are just going to be fucking irrelevant, and we're going to keep them around for nostalgia sake in some places where they have a real wait staff, or there's companies that have a real phone operator. So it's going to be a niche market to have a human being do certain jobs. But for the most part, the rest of you will have nothing to do, which is why you need to be creative, because someone's always going to want to buy. There's all these rich people out there anyway. You just need to come up with something to create. Like, and so that's where that whole means of production is like, well, I can't make my own car. But like, yeah, you can make your own car. Well, it's harder. Well, that's not the same thing you're saying. You're saying that they're holding all of the pieces to the car, and like, you can't sit there and build like, it takes longer. Who gives a shit? Like, it's a bizarre argument. But now you can 3D print it at home. You can fabricate it at home. You can laser print it at home.
Well, we've got guys that build rockets. I mean, they don't always work.
Well, we had those guys who built rockets in West Virginia from just parts out of a coal mine and shit. Like, you can. What's fucking my head up is like, we have Invent America, and we have STEM classes and this, that, and the other, and I don't understand why the creative impulse is like not expressed. Like, I don't see creativity. Like, even in the music, you'd think maybe there might be some good protest music, like the 60s or something, where, you know, if these people feel that fucking bad, maybe they'll go write a song about it. And they don't. And if they do, they just copy some shit off the 60s. And you're like, you don't feel this then. This isn't authentic. Or maybe it is, but, like, you're not doing it authentically. I don't know. It just doesn't feel... You just, you know, I'll just do the same thing as the other guy, and then do the same thing as the next fella. There's no... It feels like innovation's gone, and I would guess it's because it's not being cultivated, or at a minimum suppressed, because you would think innovation is something natural to us. I don't know, does it require suppression to not show up?
I'm not sure. I think it's out there. I think it's just tougher to find it, just because culture drifts towards what's more popular. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm more likely to listen to a song that I've heard on the radio than I am to go out and hunt for a song that I've never heard before.
See, I'm the opposite. Though. That's my problem.
I'm kind of a curmudgeon though too. So I mean, it's kind of my fault. We're gonna go grab another a drink, and you can continue for a little bit longer. Okay?
Yeah, man, sounds good. Take a break for it. All right, gang. He's gonna take a break there. I'm gonna hit pause, and you know what? I'm gonna see if I can't play a song for you guys that I miss from high school, and I wonder if it's gonna get us taken down. The artist is currently dead, and he was for a time homeless, but I believe he ended up finding a home at some point. It's a wonderful story. But this artist, he was drawing and singing these crazy songs, and it got someone's attention. Anyway, I want to play this song that I love for you guys from high school. If I can type. Here we go. So hopefully this doesn't get us taken down for copyright infringement. But this is some true creativity.
Trying to put on my work microphone there.
Oh, yeah?
I just reach for it automatically like I usually do.
Do you remember this song here? This is from, I don't know what year this song was. But for those of you who don't know, I'm going to play this song. Maybe it'll get pulled. Maybe it won't. We'll see. Who gives a shit? We don't get any money from this anyway. But for the podcast listening audience, this is Wesley Willis's Suck a Cheetah's Dick.
Suck a polar bear's funky ass. Suck a racehorse's cup with Heinz tomato ketchup. Suck a donkey's shitty ass. Suck a male candlestick of hoisin sauce. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a European bison's smelly ass. Suck a woolly mammoth stick of Miracle Whip. Suck a snow leopard's ass of whipped cream. Suck a hyena's spermy dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick.
Oh, here's a breakdown. I think this is entirely done on a Casio Fun Machine with like 3 buttons. My favorite part is the very end, so that's why I want to let it play. You may have heard say Miracle Whip already. Listen for the other things he throws out there. Yeah, every one of his songs is like 30 seconds of song like lyrics. And then a good 20-minute Casio built-in recorded track solo. Just like, dude, but I think he had schizophrenia or something. But like, I love this man. All of his, he has a song called Arnold Schwarzenegger that's really good. I Whooped Batman's Ass. That's a really good song. I have a particular soft spot for this. I was introduced through Suck a Cheetah's Dick, and it's just such a great song. That's right, kids. Leadership and madness. We do both here.
Suck a llama shitty asshole. Suck a panda bear's spermy nutsack. Suck a slut bear's booty hole. Suck a greyhound's musty ass motherfucker. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick. Suck a cheetah's dick.
Here it comes.
Rocco in London. Rocco in Chicago. Polaroid. See what develops.
That's Wesley Willis. So I love him for so many reasons. He's so great. At the end of every one of his songs, he does a plug for a product because his assumption was that if he said Polaroid at the end of a song, they would send him money. So like he'll do like a McDonald's commercial at the end of a song or a Burger King, or it's fucking wonderful. He does have a song called Rock and Roll McDonald's. But yeah, no, he was legit insane, but he's so beautiful. All of his songs are this aggressive, like, Jesus Christ, bro. Do what to a what's what? But like, it's kind of like, I miss the gonzo era of the internet. It seems like we've gotten to the procedural age of the internet again. Like the gonzo internet was like when there were still frontiers, when there was still a dark web. Now it's like, yeah, there's assassins. What are you going to do about it? But like, it's so embedded.
I think we're still at the Wild West.
But
we're starting to get sheriffs in town.
Yeah. I
think that's the difference. And the Indians aren't raiding from the mountains as much as they used to be.
Right.
The Army's starting to build a couple of forts every once in a while, but they're still pretty separated. Railroad's not here yet.
Yeah. And I think
they're thinking about
like
it.
There's towns then. So maybe that's what it is. Where like Facebook is Deadwood now, or Tombstone, or one of those kind of fucking places.
That's a good way of putting it.
You know, and these people are just like,
I
Jesus.
think actually, Twitter would be Deadwood, given the amount of murder that occurs on Twitter.
Dude. Dude, I do not like. We post shit on Twitter, but it's mostly by accident because like I'll have some apps that like, do you want to put this on Twitter? And we're like, sure, fuck it, send it. But
Yeah,
like, I don't go on there.
I've started something on Twitter. I posted twice, I think, on there.
Dude, I don't. I don't understand.
It just looks like a shitstorm,
Yeah.
and I don't understand it either.
I can't navigate it. There's too much shit
it's-
at once, and you're like, why? And of course, people are getting angry then too, because if you have to curate your own experience, like, yeah, you're only gonna find the things.
I think you get 120 characters now. You get a full combat load to be able to.
Oh, I think they could do like 200 or something, but still nowhere near enough. You can't articulate.
Oh
any
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
reason.
I write way too much, anyways. So that's one of the reasons why I don't really around with it too much. And
Yeah.
I've never used my Facebook as a political platform in the first place, so I'm kind of shit out of luck on.
Back in the day when I was still sort of in the throes of being crazy, I'd say some crazy shit on Facebook.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, this is like yelling at a speak and spell. This is fucking pointless.
Even the times that I've gotten even I wouldn't even say political, but even mentioned something like when the state went into when we had a 7-day curfew and the riots hit in Scottsdale back in, what was that, April or the end of, or no, it was the end of May. It was like the weekend after Memorial Day. I actually found out about it via Facebook, and I was like, "What the fuck?" and I was like, "This can't be real." And then I'm looking at the governor's website, and I'm looking at a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah.
It was like I would have thought I would have gotten like a notification or something like this from
Right.
local government. I've gotten things like that before.
Every time a little girl disappears for 10 seconds, you get an Amber Alert. Like, same tech, folks.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking that's probably what's going to happen. And I even go to the governor's website, and it's like, no, there's nothing there. I finally find the original article that the guy posted. He's a friend of a friend, so like folks that I know wouldn't have seen this post.
Yeah.
Like this is, I mean, I looked through it, make sure it's legit. First of all, it is not some kind of like troll thing that came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Fake news as the cool kids like to put it these days.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I mean, it was just taking a long time for, first of all, the governor's office to even put out the executive order.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, it came out, but it wasn't disseminating through channels fast enough, and it was taking effect that night. It was taking effect on a Sunday evening.
Well, and we're seeing the Tower of Babel effect too, because not everybody is sitting around watching the Channel 7 news to get the alert.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And I don't watch local news often anymore. I get most of my news from the internet, but that's probably not a good thing. But
I mean, most people
anyways,
do these days. It depends on what, as long as it's not like just Live Leak and Twitter, then you should be good.
Oh, I just go to 4chan.
Okay, good. They're pretty good. I watch
and
a lot
Alex
of
Jones' website. I try.
You got to keep it balanced.
To keep folks.
They doxed your connection. Or that's not how connections work. Yeah, dude. Like I'll watch. I
saw that too. Was it because I said Alex Jones?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
I know. I watch
the frogs and all
Singapore's news, because Singapore runs their TV, and they speak English over there, and so I'll watch that because, like, I learned that overseas pretty quick that like other countries have way better reporting on America than us.
I usually watch the BBC, even though I know they're pretty biased. BBC has probably the best international news that I've found that is in English. I don't always trust their coverage of the U.S. Or even of their own country. I mean,
there's that DW channel that's a German channel. There's RT, I believe that's paid for by the Russian government, which is kind of apparent in some of their covering. But I mean, some of their shit's good too. But
I used to have a lot more foreign websites that I followed. Just because I don't seem to have the time like I used to. I don't do it as much, but I'm trying to slowly myself back into all this kind of
Yeah, I
nonsense.
usually go to foreign press first. American press is kind of fucking useless, so I'll just stay on foreign press, and at least they'll give me some actual information. It's not just I feel this. Like, who gives a fuck? I don't. What happened? God damn it! Let us know. I'm super upset about things. Shut up, Tucker Carlson. Quit whining like a baby. Tucker Carlson turned into a bitch. What happened to that fella? He turned into such a whiny bitch.
I will not lie. I have never been a fan of him.
I was
There's just something
back when I was still into
about him
Bubba the
that I
Love
just
Sponge,
don't.
but maybe that's why.
I go. I
I was saying like back when I was into Bubba the Love Sponge, I didn't mind him, but maybe that's why, is I was into that shit. But I mean, Bubba's still a shit, so rock on, Bubba. But I mean, I for a minute, like, Tucker's got this ability to like put on the air of like I'm just a normal dude, and I'm sure he likes normal dude shit. Like, that's not impossible, but he's also like was anointed in cash at birth, and so he can't deny that fact. Yeah, yes, he's done a lot on his own. He's done quite a bit on his own, but he's still coming from a very specific, like, and it makes his reporting sound dumb at times because he's just saying shit that like old women in the 40s would say, and it's like, are you just saying shit your mom used to say, bro? Like, what the fuck is
I
this?
think it's me personally. It's probably because he replaced Megyn Kelly, and I mean,
So they're just making him say
He's a
lady
fan.
stuff? I don't. He like, it is wild. Like like you got Sean Hannity, who's such just a bloated fucking dirtbag. I can say it too because I'm a Mick just
I've
like
been a
him.
fan of him either.
Yeah,
I used to be when I was harder conservative, when I was more party line.
right. When you
guy.
could like actually buy the bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Which I would say probably was right up until my first year of college, which college itself did not change my mind. College didn't liberalize me.
Yeah.
The college Republicans were the ones that did it.
Yeah, because you're like,
Because
what the fuck, dude?
I went to one of their meetings. First, I went to a meeting because I figured after being there for 2.5 months and I hadn't socialized with anybody,
Mm-hmm.
that I probably should start trying to do that. So I looked for some groups that might have some kind of similar interests, and they had what was it? The first thing I went to was like a gun rights thingamajigger, which
Sounds fun.
hilarious as shit because
Can I
I
real
walked
quick?
in.
I am picturing you saying, "I'm sorry, I ruined your Black Panther party."
Oh no! It's almost you are almost on spot.
Is this?
Are almost.
Should I? No, I shouldn't be here, huh, fellas? All right, I'm out.
Oh, so here's exactly what happened. So, adjacent rooms. There's a. I've never been in this building before, and apparently I'm still army dumb, so I can't read numbers.
Nice.
And I'm looking to the left, I'm looking to the right.
Which
and
room's the
I can
north
hear
one?
voices in both of them. And so I was like, well, it's probably this one on the left. I open the door, and there's this circle of people all sitting in chairs, and they've already started their meeting.
Right.
They've been in their meeting for quite a while, it looks like. And I'm just standing there. I'm probably wearing my third ACR T-shirt or something military martial related. Look at. I had hair at the time, so I can't say I was bald. But look at it, it's like, this isn't the gun rights meeting, is it? And me being my ignorant ass doesn't observe the fact that there are a lot of, like, just say, androgynous folks sitting in this circle.
Right.
I walked into like the gay, lesbian, transsexual meeting.
So you're on like David Bowie night, and they're like,
yeah. It was like walking into the Black Panthers meeting. Only
sorry,
a lot more embarrassing.
I know. I'm looking for the guns. Yeah, no, I get.
I'm looking for those college Republicans that hate you.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
we're gonna talk about guns too,
dude. That would be one of those moments where I just hang out with those guys. Like, no, I'm not. Can I? I'll make sure the tea doesn't run out or something. I'm sorry. Fuck. Dude, that's funny. It is wild too. Like, it blows my mind to see college Republicans in high school. Yeah, like it's stupid that 18-year-olds can vote. We just did that so we could send them to Vietnam. Like it should be 21. And like military enlistment should be 21. Like, yeah, oh, what are they going to do between 18 and 21? I don't know, something else. But like they're too goddamn young for a lot of this stuff. And it's not that, oh, you're stupid or this or this or that. It's that you're unseasoned. You got too many showroom miles and you don't have any like field miles. You don't have any dust under your belts. And it really fucks you up when you move into the next phase of things. Like that gap year idea is a good idea. You know, we had this idea last year where we're like, oh, we're going to send people on a gap year. And then the plague hit. We're like, that's a bad idea. So not happening thus far. But like they go from this training program that is public education, which just teaches you how to pass tests. And then they put them into boot camp. And then now boot camps are having to like soften themselves up. And in some places it's good, but in other places it's just lowering the standards so that you can pass more people. Because the quality of troop that we're getting is dog shit. But it comes
Yeah,
from
I remember the statistic for who actually would qualify just a basic body fat and physical ability, and your requirements for the Army just to get into basic training are pretty low. I can't remember what they were. I'm hoping I remember. This is just to get in basic training. This is not to pass basic training, but just to get in. Was something along the lines of 13 push-ups, 17 sit-ups, and I want to say a 9-minute mile, but that seems like it's low because the other two standards are so low. Because to get out of basic training, to finish basic training was, and again, my numbers might be a little off because it's been quite a while, and it does scale with age too. Yeah. For an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, I can't remember if I was 18 or 19 at the time. It was it wouldn't matter anyways. It was 42 push-ups. Was it for sit-ups? 53 sit-ups, and I want to say an 18-16. Now I'm getting all fucked up. What was it? I want to say a 15-14 2-mile. Want to say. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's just a pass. And that and for the Army, physical or your PT score was a huge aspect on promotion.
Well, it's like fat
so
children.
Better you did, more points you got, and things like that.
Yeah, like fat children are a bigger national security threat than China. Type 2 diabetes is a bigger national security threat than China.
I think internally, definitely.
Because like we have a
TikTok,
population that
I think TikTok is the reason why they're fat, though.
Well, they were fat before that, luckily. Well, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I'm fucking with you.
But yeah, like it is kind of gnarly, like these. But it's funny too, because like I remember going to the gun range. You see all these just aggressively obese, and sorry if that's you, but like get after it. But these just like tit sweat, big fat fucks in their Michigan militia onesies, or like I don't know where you get BDUs that big outside of tearing down a tent. And so, but they're in there trying to do their drills, but they have to like have their feet hold up, so because like they couldn't sight in on their weapons because their titties had them, like they're sorry ladies, but these gentlemen had breasts, like just the material was there enough to call it that significantly, saying it. But these militia fellers were too fucking fat to sight in the weapon appropriately. And so they kept like having to lean down and shit. And so their shot was actually going high because when they'd lean down on the weapon, they'd tilt it up a bit. And so they were shooting high on it. And that kept confusing them because they were just big fat fucks. But it's like, what the fuck do you think you're going to do? But I get it. Like, they're not powerful. They need to feel powerful. So I can't question them too much and hate them too much or anything like that. But like, it is remarkable that like these, you know, reenactment groups, that's all they really are. Like, they're never going to do anything. And if they do, God forbid, because it's going to fucking blow up in their face the minute it happens. Like, for their own sake, I hope the Michigan militia does not engage in any kind of combat, because you will all die. All of you will die. So don't get it in your head that you'll do anything good, because you will all die. That being said, I don't know, but it's like, but again, it's one of those like aggressive things that's like, oh, I'm gonna stand up and be, when people feel weak or feel like they're in a weaker position, there is that knee-jerk reaction to then present as strong, to posture oneself, to be, well, I'm not that, fuck you. But like, there's the, again, the Epictetus answer that, I'm sure we've said Epictetus so many times that you've at least looked him up once by now if you're a regular listener. And the idea of turning the thing around and finding the other angle of it, like, it is always ultimately more effective. Imagine just in this sort of simple interaction, let's say you're trying to storm a castle and the army has all their people at the front door and you decide to march to the front door. Well, it's a bad idea. Go around back. They won't expect you. You win. Like that, there's that quick, simple methodology, but also like, it's amazing what gets accomplished with a hug where one might also throw a punch. It's amazing what happens when you insert a laugh where you might also yell or scream or cry or insert what have you. Like it is amazing how much more effective that opposite reaction really is. Like fire with fire is rather much nonsense.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're all guilty of making the wrong decisions at times.
Well, yeah, we're animals,
I am personally very, very recently guilty of that. And
It's hard.
how shit works, and unfortunately, human psychology isn't perfect. And I mean, that's part of the things that we got to realize is that we're not perfect, and neither the other people that we're interacting are perfect either.
Right. I think that's a big thing too. Like, because we're gonna have to unify as a people. Because the Civil War is not a fucking option. None of you fat fucks are fit enough to pull it off. It ain't gonna happen.
I've been speaking to a friend not offline, but offline, I guess is the best way to put it. And I'm trying to explain. It's like, dude, I've been in a real street fight. You don't want this shit happening in this country.
Yeah, and he ain't talking like that. Remember, he was talking about tanks on streets. That kind of street fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's not fun, and I mean, I don't even know what side I would be on in a situation that would go down like that.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I really don't.
I'd be an independent of some sort. Like, I'd have to be just a leave me the fuck alone force of like.
Well, I guess it would depend on how it all went down personally for me
Well, it depends on
really decide where I would land on.
Both sides are pretty much
if shit
idiots.
Were to go to that point. Yeah. I don't think it is. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think maybe.
No, I think
if shit keeps going the way it is, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, it could be. I mean, we might be in the Buchanan years right now, right before the Civil War.
Right. But I mean,
we're getting close.
I think we can avoid it if we like era. But if we empower people and put more effort into that rather than trying to tear everyone down, because the idea that like, oh, you're a fucking racist, you're a piece of shit, you should die. How about, oh, you have some fucked up ideas, let's talk about that and get you back on track, bud. Like, where's that end of the fucking conversation? Like, I understand there are a number of people presenting it, but I think there need to be way more people presenting it. Like, even as a non-Christian, I can still fully value Christ the Redeemer. I love Jesus Christ the Redeemer more than all sort of mythological, religious, actual, real fucking things, if that's what you need to hear from me. But Christ the Redeemer is a beautiful idea. The idea that like each human is a redeemable thing. We may not act it that way, we may not seem that way, but like it's fucking true. Like I've seen evidence of it. I'm sure you've seen evidence of it. And to pretend so otherwise, like that's true fucking evil. Like even if these people are behaving in a way that is evil, to pretend that they cannot do better is also evil. Like that's what upsets me about, like I was full tilt on the left for a minute. And then they started going hard in the paint on like, now we're going to categorize people and collect minorities like Pokemon and like all this fucking crazy shit. And it's like, no, I'm not playing that. I'm not going to like pretend racism isn't racism because you're doing it. That's fucking insanity to me. And so like, it doesn't make sense. These ideas, and then this idea, oh, you got to pick a side. Fuck you. No, I don't. Not if your sides are dumb and your game is dumb. Like, that's insanity. No, I don't. And that's, like, the other part, too, is, like, you and I know this very fucking well, because we read that document that we swore our life to, that this is the kind of country where, no, we don't. We can do whatever the fuck we want. And, like, that's the thing that, like, breaks my heart as a vet, is to see all these people wait in line or try to find a job or, like, all waiting for someone else to make their life better. And it's like, no, just fucking go do it. Oh, it's hard. Yeah, no shit. Everything is. Like,
It sucks.
dude,
I mean, you're gonna have to drive on. I mean, you were kind of coming into the point, earlier that robots are going to take over. I would say probably 70 to 80% of the manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, in like 5 years.
Or anything that doesn't require any like technical training, essentially. And even technical training is next. I mean, I see it in my own job, and I work in a medium that requires human interaction.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing ways that they can reduce the human footprint, be able to, they haven't actually implemented these things yet, but I can see the writing on the wall. I know what's going on.
Yeah, androids are cool. And we'll be thankful because we'll be able to go to the moon and do Star Trek shit and all. But like,
that'd be nice.
I think too, this is like the death throes of empire, and it doesn't have to be the death throes of America. It could be the death throes of the American empire, or the way, like, who the fuck knows? But like, to the point of, we're in a death cycle. Obviously, everything's fucking tanking. Everything's falling apart. This, that, boo hoo, wah wah wah. But what that means is for every forest that's been burned down is like a clear space we can build something new. Like all the shit that we built and our grandparents built and our parents built, it's falling apart. Thank them for building it in the first place, but now it's time to build new shit. Like the effort we put into like, oh no, and holding up the walls of these crumbling fucking things is not going to it's not going to keep Rome there. Like, that's one of the things that's also kind of bothersome.
Well, and that's the shitty thing though, is a lot of folks that are physically tearing things down are using that kind of logic as well. So, and again, I'm always at the point that there's got to be a middle way through a lot of these things. You got to accept the arguments from the one side.
Yeah.
And again, I disagree with socialism, progressivism in very fervent ways. I don't disagree with some of the concepts. I mean, racial equality, accepting people as they are, things like that. Those don't bother me because why should they?
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't affect me personally, then not a big deal. Now, if I go out on a date with you and I find out that you got a dick later in the night, I'm going to be a little pissed. That's going to kind of
if it's a surprise and you don't like those kind of surprises, you might be upset.
Luckily, that's never happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also the concept is like if I might hold my own personal views on certain things, but if I'm interacting with you at a personal level and you want to be called a certain thing or something like that, I'm willing to adhere to that. It's not gonna hurt me. It's not gonna change any of my opinions, but I don't want to make you feel like a shitbag just for being how you feel that you are.
Well, and I think because like that argument's such a in those kind of arguments too. It's interesting because you have on the one side you have somebody who's struggling for just recognition. And so in that struggle for recognition comes the like, okay, what do you want to be recognized for or as or da-da-da. And then so a lot of that effort goes into the recognition portion and like the labeling portion and the like, and it sort of gets away from the like just
being the person as an individual.
Yeah.
Rather than the labels that come along with it.
Because like it's also dangerous to assume that like, there's one kind of anything. Like, there's like TV gay guy, and then there's all the other ones. And I don't know that I've ever met a TV gay guy. I've met a ton of gay guys.
No, I get what you mean.
And I've never met the like, hey, like, if they exist.
No, I've ran into a couple of them, but not too many.
I think of now.
I'm
thinking of two off the top of my head, but that's it. Everybody else is a human fucking being. Some people, but I also know a lot of straight folks who are just as fucking woo like it's these ideas of like, oh, because like what worries me is the idea of somebody going, oh, I have to do that though, and like no, but like there's these fucking weird bananas ideas of like, well, these are the only examples, so that's what like, is it? Do we require a pattern, or I don't know where that comes from. The like, oh, I'll just do it. Maybe it's because you think, oh, okay, that's successful. I want to be successful, so I'll just do the successful thing. Is that the like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it nature of humans? Even applying to absurd things like, yeah, I just Photoshop my butt and put it on Instagram. Oh, I just masturbate in front of strangers for $1 at a time. And
I think a lot of those are aberrations.
But I
I
mean,
don't know
like-
about the dick pic thing. I don't know how prevalent that is.
Right,
Luckily, I'm kind of angry. I've never gotten a tit pic. I've been waiting for a tit pic, but I never get them.
well, maybe it'll come in it's like, you've seen those things where like a postcard takes like 100 years. That would be a fun postcard to get 100 years late. When you're super old, you're like, yes. Dude, people are, because I'm like, there has to be some level of that. If somebody's like, I want those things, this person did those to get, like, because I almost think humans believe human behavior is the same thing as magic. Where, like, because human
Kind of is.
Like,
I mean, we don't really understand why we do a lot of the shit that we do.
And we're hyper mimics. We'll over mimic, like we'll add steps to a thing that aren't necessary because we saw someone else do this step. Like, it's what allows oral traditions to be more effective than written traditions, is our ability to hyper emulate things and like hyper copy things. But like, we do it to such a bizarre degree that like, we'll wear the same haircut, we'll do the same this, but like, I think some of it's a vocabulary thing too, because it's like, no, that person's not confident because of their haircut. They're confident because they believe they can do the things they say they do. And someone else is like, oh, I thought it was the jacket. And what? But like that is a thing. Like, so much of high school fashion is based on like, oh, if I wear this magical ensemble, then I will be granted an armor of some kind of protection against being a teenager. It's like, no, you're still going to be embarrassed and whatever. You're a gross little werewolf, just like the rest of all of them.
You're still going to get that chubby right when you're getting ready to take a speech.
Right. Could you come up to the board? Give me about 5 or 10. No, it's not happening today. Yeah, dude. But I mean, it goes to the Emperor's New Clothes kind of thing. Or not even the Emperor's New Clothes, but like the Emperor's New Wardrobe. Like, because one of my hypotheses, so here's my hypothesis on like, I always thought the reason Trump didn't want to release his tax statements is that it would disqualify him from security clearance. And I'm pretty sure I'm right, if the New York Times is right, is that's why he hid his shit, is because he
Well, the president does not need because he's an elected official, does not need a security clearance.
You do need security clearances.
They're not vetted by.
Yes. Members of Congress have security clearances. You have to be cleared. You can be read into a certain degree, but you have to have clearance.
Unless I mean, there was a couple of years that I read that he wouldn't need to be, but
they made a waiver specifically.
Because if you're getting a security clearance, they're going to have access to all that information anyways. It's got to be divulged.
Right. They had to do a whole thing, and then they basically gave him like a write-off. They didn't do a security. They didn't do the full security clearance check on him because they couldn't, because he didn't have his finances submitted. Because if he did, he wouldn't get the security clearance, which is pretty much why I thought that. Like, because like you knew he was a fucking sham from the 90s. He's always been a failed businessman and known as a failed businessman. It blew my mind that people thought he was successful and like we're like, oh, he's gonna bring us around because he's a rich man and makes all these businesses and does rich guy shit. Like, no, it's been public knowledge for decades and decades that this dude's a shitbag fraudster with no money. Like, he lives in a gold palace because it's all fake. Like, I don't know. It's bananas. The boy's crazy. But, like, besides that, like, what was the fucking point of that? It had something to do with the... I can't remember. I get off on tangents, man.
I had security clearances, and then I started looking shit up, and then I realized I probably shouldn't be doing that. We're not having a debate, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's my. Maybe he doesn't need one because they read him in on shit anyway. But I think they sort of pencil whipped it this time because everybody else has submitted their paperwork. Nobody else has had a problem with it.
I'm not sure how. I'm not sure if Congress does or
Like the
individual
Majestic
cabinet
Five.
members need. Well, I think if you serve on the House Intelligence Committee and things like that, you probably do. I don't think every congressman needs one of those. Needs a
Well, it depends on the
clearance if they're not
information
privy to
that's going on.
security.
Right.
If
But-
they're not privy, I mean,
But for the
and I'm
shit
not
the
going to go into
president's
it
sitting
too
on.
much.
Right.
But having had a top secret clearance,
Yeah.
I mean, getting a security clearance is easy as shit.
Really
I
easy.
mean, you got to know like 3 people, and you have not go into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
like,
Everybody
last
in the
10
Air Force
years.
has a secret, so like it's
Yeah.
not that
Top-
crazy.
Top secret is a shit ton more involved.
Right. But the whole
Um,
point too is that like he was just a broke ass, and that means he can be bought. Because like the one like it's only a few things that'll prevent you from getting security clearance, and the biggest one is having your finances all fucked up. Because most people who become traitors to their country are either victimized by their country,
that's a huge.
or they're broke, or they have blackmail. So it could be maybe they have
Yeah, there's other-
PVDOs and they know he's broke.
Yeah, it's usually something that would be blackmailable or
Yeah.
like that.
And
Like,
for a big guy,
closeted-
it'd probably be a combination of a few of them.
Yeah.
Depending on whatever the asset is. And that's not to say he's an asset, because obviously he's a dipshit. He wouldn't be that big of an asset to anybody. Like, I think if the Russians were using him, he would not be involved in it. They would not let him know he was a Russian asset. There's no fucking way they tell him.
Yeah, I mean, now I will always say this.
Mhm.
Putin is probably the most shrewd political player on the global chessboard
Yeah.
right now, bar none.
And he is
And
trolling
the fact that
the
that
world.
guy got away with some of the shit he's gotten away with so far.
Dude, he conquered half of well, not half, but he took over Odessa, or not, what?
Crimea.
That's what it was.
He's
Then-
working. He's working on Odessa.
Yeah, that's what.
I think that's kind of quieted down. I haven't heard a whole lot of news out of eastern Ukraine in a while, so I don't know if they're still actively fighting. I know
Well, I
that
heard they ran out of money and
I
they
watched-
couldn't afford to do it themselves anymore, so they were trying to pay locals to do it and do like a proxy war thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a shitstorm over there. I mean, it has been a couple of years. And again, I don't know if I remember like actively watching like the YouTube videos and shit like that were coming out of eastern Ukraine, and it was fucking nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like full
It was an actual
close
war.
to a wall combat.
Yeah.
They were fighting a fucking war over there.
Yeah, and it just
Might not
went-
have been widespread, but I mean, in the local areas that they were really engaged with each other, it was happening.
yeah,
Fighting.
and it was just nonsense. It was just Russia invading Ukraine, and they're like, "Well,
But-
somebody asked us to." And you're like, "Fuck you! That's not how this works. It's not how countries work." You
Well,
shit.
I studied Ukraine quite a bit in college, and I mean, it's a fucked up country because the eastern half of Ukraine is you would consider ethnic Russian, or
Well,
they consider themselves Russian more than Ukrainian.
well, they're the
Central
birthplace of-
part of the country is very like mixed. It's kind of like we like Ukraine, we like Russia. We're not really. We're in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost boils down right, left, right, middle, and left.
Mhm.
You know, it's almost perfect. And then the left people on the western side of the country more identify with the European Union as Ukrainians, other than the little sliver of Moldavia, which is borders Ukraine, which is like full of Russians,
right.
just full of them, or folks that consider themselves Russian. I mean, it's just crazy over there. The disposition of ethnic groups within Europe is just crazy in the first place.
And they're like, it's crazy too, because like Europe was like, oh, Americans are so fucking racist, and then meanwhile they're like burning Basque people, and we're like, what are Basque people? Like just, oh, we're fucking
Yeah.
up the Kurds and these guys and those guys and those guys, and we're like, are they black or white? Like we're dumb fucks over here with our stupid shit. Like that's the crazy part too. Like if we slowed down and got back on the same team, we could get back out there and be helpful in these legitimate genocides. Like Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening out there. There's fucking genocide, and we're sitting back with our dicks in our hands because we're busy being pushed around and told that we're our own enemy by other governments, and we're buying it because it's not that hard to buy because we used to be each other's enemies. Like, it's fucking stupid. Like, it blows my mind that the most powerful country on earth can't figure out friendship. You're telling me we're that fucking stupid that we can't figure out peace? We're that powerful that we have to stay this weak? That we have to be afraid forever? That fucking blows my mind. It's a weird position to say that we're so great and yet we express this greatness through just pure weakness.
I think a lot of it was, the confusion over 9/11 plus the economic crash of, what was it, 2008, right?
Yeah.
And kind of all the ramifications that resulted from that. I mean, we grew up in the 90s. We remember how the 90s were. The 90s were probably the greatest period of prosperity in the country's history, other
90s
than
were
a
also
few,
weird,
few
though.
little hiccups.
The 90s were also
yeah.
I remember having a class and they're like, remember, black
Existential
people are
dread as
human.
well.
And you're like, I didn't know they weren't. What the fuck's going on? Like, there was such a weird push in the 90s to, like, remember, cripples are like gods and you can't touch them. And you're like, what the fuck? And, like, the education we got, at least this was 1997 specifically, I remember was the beginning of, like, the first early wokeness. And it was all, like, really racist and hateful, but it was all done with a smile. And it was all like, these fucking mongoloids can't help it, so you have to be nice to them. And you're like, what the fuck are you saying? You barbarians.
I don't remember anything like that.
Dude, yeah, this was my 7th grade English
I do
class.
remember that there were, I mean, the area that we grew up in was predominantly white. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there was not a whole lot of ethnic diversity in Mott.
It's
from,
not weird
from what
that
I
there's
remember.
two
It was
Steves look
there.
like
It
this.
was there, but it wasn't like, it was like 2%, 3% of the people were
Yeah.
and maybe
There
1% or maybe 4% were Hispanic. We probably had more Hispanics in the school than we did black
we
folks.
had Hispanic and Middle Eastern and black, and we had pretty much everybody, but it was in low numbers.
Very small minorities.
It was
very
like
small minorities.
less than 20, maybe less than 30 was not a pale face. The rest was all us fucking sunburnt critters.
But then again, at the same time, I don't remember ever really thinking anything different of anyone, just because it wasn't something that was taught so much.
No, and it was weird. Like when
the
they
knowledge was there.
started
The
teaching-
knowledge was there that this person is a different color than me. I mean, I'm not an idiot.
They
I can
covered
tell
it in
that someone
Sesame
doesn't.
Street. We're good. Like
I don't like you. I don't like you for a different reason. It's not because you're black or Mexican or Asian.
Yeah, but like I do remember in the 90s they started bringing our race into shit again, and then like bringing it kind of front and center, and you're like, what the fuck's that got to do with anything? I thought this is a country where your history didn't matter, and they're like, well, now it matters pretty important, and we're just gonna focus on this for a while. And like, because there was like, and it might have just been that teacher I had, and it might have just been that class, but it was supposed to be an English class, and it was in 7th grade, and the whole fucking year was just like learning about what a piece of shit I accidentally was, and like, so I didn't take any of it seriously, and neither did any of us, because your premise is weak and flawed. Like, oh, you poor racist fucks, you don't know this, that, and the other because you didn't take my class.
Yeah, I kind of remember that, and I don't remember if we went to the same middle school or not.
I went to Crary until I got kicked out for being a
Okay,
criminal.
no, we went. We went to I went to Mason, so I was across town from you.
Yeah.
And I remember the curriculum very well.
Yeah, I think it was probably different in each person's hands, but it was a lot of like, you fucking this, and you're like, all right, calm down, I'm just a kid. What's happening?
My teacher for that year was not that
aggressive with it.
Maybe I'm thinking of high school actually. Fuck. I don't remember my 7th grade English curriculum now. Yeah, I think about it.
Because like it was.
Oh, I'm a complete wash now.
Because I used to like.
I'm probably gonna go to bed pretty soon.
I thought we were gonna write stories or something, and then it's like, oh, all right, it's just this, and it was a lot of like, again, stuff coming from a well-intended place, but it was just so poorly thought out that
On the nose.
yeah, and
Wasn't
well, and it also
wasn't getting
caused
into the nuance.
like some of the shit that it did too is like it caused some kids to become mean because they thought they were untouchable. And so like, do you remember the weird stretch of mean disabled kids we had? It was brief and weird, and you're like, what the fuck? And they'd like run over your feet and laugh in your face, and you're like, what in the fuck is going on here, man? And it was like a gang of crippled kids, and it was because they were untouchable. Like they went through a number of years of education where like after a while they're like, oh fuck, I can get away with anything. And then they just become gangsters. Like pimps and gangsters. In fucking chairs and crutches, and like there ain't nothing you can do, and they'll knock you in the knee, and you're like, you're shit out of luck, because what are you gonna do, tell on me? Go fuck yourself. Like it was, and it wasn't, but you know, I would have done it too, I guess, if I was presented that. Like, fuck yeah, let's you know, especially if like maybe you were made to feel weak before, but like fuck me, dude, like that weird like untouchable, because the thing of like when you create a protected class, like you create a class that becomes out of control.
It's protected.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Cool. Woo. And it's not like everyone's going to do that, but you look at the slivers of the slivers, take, you know, square root of the half of the population.
Yeah, it doesn't take a whole lot of any group to give the rest of the group a bad name.
Right. And then the other thing too is like that's
exploit the problems.
Because you get these like, you know, on the conservative end of things, like, oh, they're giving all this fucking money on unemployment, and they're doing all this, and they're doing all that, and these fucking welfare queens, and this, that, and the other. And most people out there, like some people out there, for sure, like I've heard a couple stories of people who are making out like fucking bandits, and it's unfortunate because there are legitimately people who are starving, and then there's some 20-somethings who are just rolling in dough.
I worked at a welfare office for 3 years. I've seen it.
Because it's a thing we need. It's a thing that we desperately need, and it's a thing that we utilize out of desperation. But it's also a thing that like ain't hard to game if you feel so inclined, and like.
Especially if you know other people that have been gaming that system,
right?
And know the ins and outs.
And it's you can find and that's not a racial thing. So don't think that to us bald white fellers are going to say that's a black thing, because I'll tell you, I've been to a number of trailer parks that's how that economy thrives, where it's folks looking just like me, talking just like me, and they're spending all the government's dollar just on meth and all kinds of crazy drugs. And like
I had someone come to the welfare office at one point, and I don't know why you would like announce this as you're coming in, like right in front of. I was the security manager there, but why you would like walk in front of the front desk, because that's what we manned, and say, okay, you're 18 now, time to apply for your welfare.
Yikes!
Like. Why would you just announce that right in front of people?
Yeah.
Why is that necessary? Why wouldn't you have that conversation in the car before you got here? And I didn't have a car at the time that worked, but you were already doing better than me.
Yeah, it is pretty, and like, and like, because I'm guessing like it doesn't matter what shade they were, like if.
And by the way, it was they were stark white. They were probably. That
sounded like
I forgot to mention that part.
Yeah, because like here's the other thing, I know this for sure, just from a lot of friends I have, and like just even living in a black neighborhood, like there's way more pride than that in those neighborhoods, and like a lot of this welfare fraud, that's a toothless white feller thing, and as a semi-toothless white feller, I can say that, so fuck you, but it's like shitty behavior is not it doesn't belong to anyone. Like that's I always get, you know. Because I'm guessing the reason that the statistics guy got called a racist or whatever in that, you know, previous we're talking about that debate is likely because a lot of times statistics are rough and statistics can be skewed and this, that, and the other thing. But it's like what it's also doing is framing a world where like I think they gave
You
up
don't use
because they felt like
incidental evidence to make your point. You're utilizing larger,
right, like
you're not using feelings to make your point. You're utilizing facts essentially.
right, because like the number part is so it's cold too. There's something about that where it feels very ein, zwei, drei, and that wasn't fun. And you know the idea of like, well, 4% of this and 20% of that and 8% of this and 10% of that. You know, like because I had this argument with my dad at one point, and he's like, well, a lot of police officers get shot at work. I'm like, yes, I understand that. That's something that they understand and are trained for. One would hope. And then he's like, well, this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, let's just compare, shall we? And we looked, and in the time frame that we were comparing, just for that sample, because oddly enough, my dad and I, like, it scares people around us because we sound like two gorillas, but like that's just how we get points across sometimes. But so we're gorilla fighting this fucking point, but we get to the numbers, and I was like, yeah, and that number, not those same officers, but in that same time period, 10 times as many unarmed civilians were shot and killed as armed police officers who were in an armed engagement. And then a smaller segment of that were in an unarmed engagement. They were just fucking sucker shot out of the, driver's seat or something. But that's a much smaller number than like live fire incident or something like that. The ambushes are pretty rare. Not that they don't happen in gross numbers, but not that they don't happen in the largest numbers either. It's the minimal incident. But anyway, that being said,
It takes a lot of balls to start doing ambushes. Yeah.
right? And like if I start
you're going to
throwing
get hunted.
these numbers out, like it's important to understand the number for scale. Like yes, 10 times as many civilians were shot as police. That's important for scale. 10 times, holy! But that's more. I use it for the rhetorical part of the 10 times. Like it's probably 10.4 or 9.89 or something like that. And I'm bringing it back into the, but a lot of times too, if you're just like, well, this is that and that's this, there's something so distant about it that like, it feels like there's a separateness from, like, an otherness is added to it or something. Where and it's
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. That they're cold, they're factual, they're not appealing. They're not appealing to your emotional side of things. They're trying to appeal to your intellectual side of things, and unfortunately, most people, it's easier to appeal to the emotional than it is to the rational, because emotions are easier to manipulate than.
Well, and the two are glued together, though. Like all of our rational thoughts have emotional tinges, and all of our emotional thoughts have rational tinges too. Yeah. The two hemispheres speak to one another. And so, I mean, it would benefit the debater. I mean, the debater would be more successful in persuading the person to their side if they could be empathetical with that typically coldly. Because, I mean, that's part of, like, why we are so goofy and fucking who gives a shit on this show, is because we get into some pretty aggressive topics. Like, we talk about the nature of why suicide is programmed into you as a human being and how to overcome suicide. So we better chuckle a couple fucking times. Otherwise, that episode's going to be a bummer nonstop. But it's a way to allow... Because the other part, too, is like when you're delivering this information, I think there's, yes, I have a point, I have this thing, and I'm saying this, and this is that. But the other person needs to be engaged with the process as well. And, like, there is that element you need to steal from stand-up almost. Like, you don't necessarily have to be funny, but you have to feel what the person you're communicating with is expressing as well.
And admittedly, his delivery is very cold and calculated. He tried to use a couple of incidental events and things like that, but I mean, his presentation is very factual and cold. And I mean,
and that can
it's
hurt
something
people
that
too.
It does appeal. It doesn't bother me so much. I understand why it would bother a general audience, but again.
Well, I imagine, like, if there's any, like, biblical literalists who hear me just straight shit-talking biblical literalism, they might have that same impact because I'm speaking with such confidence counter to something that they have equal confidence in. And, like, that's unsettling on another level because, like, that vault where you keep all that confidence, there's a bunch of other shit in there, too. And, like, if you knock over my Bible confidence, what else is that going to knock over? And, like, that's part of the fucking fuck you because, like, in it, if your identity is part of if your identity requires the arc to be fucking as you picture it, then you're screwed anyway. But it's also like, I think that's some of the things too, is like, we're not necessarily honest or maybe even aware of like what else we tuck in with our beliefs. Like, why am I so for this or against that? Oh, because I had an M16 pointed in my face by a cop and that bummed me out. So I have a pretty extreme bias in this police reform position because I had a fucking gun in my face. I have slightly less bias because it wasn't fired, but it still sucked. And,
Well,
so,
if it was fired, you don't have any bias.
True. I would be at a negative.
Be a bypass.
It'd just
A
be a
cranial
non-issue
bypass
at that point. Yeah, it'd just be citizens aid another mentally ill man. Yeah, it's, those things are always part of it, but like, it's fine. That's one of the, like, all these gotcha moments are, that thing fucks me up too. Like, you see it, I don't see it so much in like your debates, but even in like these like pro debaters, you see like fuckheads like Ben Shapiro. He's not a fuckhead because of what he thinks. He's a fuckhead of like just his smug fuckheadedness. I don't, his certainty.
See, I'm becoming a big fan of him.
I'm just gonna say, I hate his certainty. If he could be, and maybe the way he, maybe
I think it depends on where you watch him and what kind of format he's in.
Yeah,
because I've seen him in like debates with individuals that are less.
If he can chill out, I bet he might be okay.
I think he's tempered with age as well too. So I mean, it depends on the format that you're watching him in.
Because he had.
I only recently started watching him quite a bit too. So
he reminded me of. You remember Tom Hanks' kid in Saving Private Ryan? He played the West Point lieutenant. Like, well, just
Tom
anyway.
Hanks' kid?
Yeah, that was Tom Hanks' son who played the West Point lieutenant who got everything all fucked up. Oh, no, in Band of Brothers. The guy who kept like, oh, I have to go to a meeting.
Oh, okay. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's that kind of like, he doesn't have the I'm going to the meeting vibe, but he has that kind of like West Point vibe of like, don't you know I know everything? It says here on my ring. I'm like, fuck you, you dipshit. There's so many of those Academy fuck sticks. And then like, and yeah, he's going to have that, but like, that's one of the problems just in academia is the confidence they give you of like, da, 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 da. None of this information is relevant anymore. Da, 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 da. Here's a big speech. Da. None of these jobs require any of the shit we've taught you, so you have to go learn new skills anyway. Ba, ba, da, ba. And then they're like, I went to Harvard. Cool. I've been to West Point. I went to the gift shop. Suck my dick. Like, what do you want, man? So you got suckered into going to the more expensive place? Fuck you. I went to OCC, Oakland Community College, twice, motherfucker. Great time every time. Save that money, baby. Yeah, but like that, I mean, that kind of bugs me, that smugness in delivery, especially smugness in debate. And I think that's what sets people off.
I get it. I've heard that before, and I think I felt that way about him for a while, too.
But I wonder if maybe then, too, if that's not on purpose on his part to cause them to go into the hyperbolic argument. Like if he's trying to draw out an emotional response so that they just skip their rational response, which in that case is smart. It's devious as fuck.
It's a tactic. I mean, it's a tactic. I mean, I would say, someone like Shapiro or anybody at that scale of a debater or political commentator is probably more skilled than someone on the level of modern day debates performing that kind of rhetorical
but in that
gymnastics.
Very specific avenue too. Like he knows a very specific kind of karate, and then like if he were to MMA with us here, he'd be fucked. Because I mean, even some of your debate buddies would be fucked here because as soon as they're trying to like, well, I have a point and a counterpoint, and they'll excuse me, I'll go, You're talking to Socrates, motherfucker. We're gonna get weird. And we're gonna get weird quick. So what do you mean by that? Define your terms. Let's get back to basics. That's a stupid question. That's a stupid premise. Let's redefine. Like, it would be so hard for them to. But I mean, that's part of. It's not it's not fair because it's a weird contrast and a weird comparison, but. It's also weird for people to watch sometimes because they'll see these things and assume it's one thing. These two people fucking hate each other. Maybe, but probably not. I don't even know if they know each other.
Yeah, usually there's. I mean, there. Sometimes you can tell the vitriol is out there, but
every now and again there's like a good fuck you. But you know, like it doesn't seem like anybody on there's like, even the ones who get personal, like they're personal because of experience, not just because like they're writing it.
Yeah. I mean, there's only been maybe a few times that I've seen things devolve into I would consider like direct personal attacks.
Right.
Um,
And that's always fun.
not, yeah. Those are what we like to call the dumpster fires. Kind of like what happened last night. You know, they're fun to watch. They're cringy to watch.
Yeah.
They're kind of like watching. I don't know if you ever watched The Office, but it's kind of like watching Michael Scott, the boss in there, do anything.
That's why I don't
Try
watch
to
that show.
talk about racial incidents.
I can't deal with that kind of
Well,
awkward.
and the idea is it's so cringy. You're just like, why? It's like watching that person that you know is crashing and burning,
Yeah.
and you can't do anything to stop it, but you can't stop watching
Right.
because it's just so funny. It
yeah.
just makes you feel that weird.
I didn't know you can get your head
Why are
that
they
far up your own ass. No shit.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy to watch.
Yeah. And well, it's interesting
the,
too
the
because
rubberneck.
like,
It's the rubberneck syndrome. You're going past the accident on the car, the car accident on the side of the highway, and you're looking at it.
right.
You shouldn't be looking at it. You should be paying attention to what's in front of you in the road, but you just can't help looking at it.
How is it that this? Because an interesting thing too is like the way some of these folks talk, you know, about like how obligation and somebody owes somebody and this has to happen and that, you know. One of the interesting things I notice that happens, and we tried to kind of make the point in a previous episode, was having different expectations of other people than yourself, where like, you know, these people need to do this. Well, what about you? No, I'm fine. Well, you don't have to, like, it's the idea that people don't have to lead by example, that they should be able to expect different behaviors of other people, and that they should be able to behave differently just for no reason whatsoever. Like, the reason, you know, like, yes, lynching should be outlawed, but they should be allowed to lynch people. Like, that's the whole kind of, I mean, that's the sort of deep end of that cancel culture, is a lynch mob for the lynch mob. But that's not stopping lynch mobs.
I see what you're saying.
That's just adding another lynch mob.
I think it's because they feel that and this was expressed a few times during both debates, is that the idea is that certain voices within society have been suppressed and disarmed for so long. Now that they have some kind of power within social media being the principal way of things going about it, that rules still playing, they like to think that they're still playing by the same rules. It's just now that they're playing by the same rules, they're on the equal playing field, that they're justified utilizing the same tactics. Now, obviously, they're not going out and lynching people, and they're not physically murdering folks.
Right. Yeah, I'm not comparing. I'm only comparing.
Yeah, no. I understand. I just wanted to kind of clarify what I was trying to get at there.
Yeah, I kind of.
They're essentially saying that no, we haven't been able to, you know, put our voices out as strongly as you have for the last, you know, whatever you want to say, 2,000 years or whatever number you want to put on it.
Yeah.
Now that we've got that power, it scares those that have had that systematic ruling class power, and now they're all freaking out about it. I don't buy that argument so much, because there's people that have been in that systematic power structure that are going along with it as well. Yeah. So I think it's a moot argument in the first place, because you're not really.
I don't understand the power argument. Like, there's no such thing as power. That's not a real thing, and that is that always confuses the shit out, because power disappears the minute you ignore it. Like, you tell me to do something and I ignore you, and then even if you say you're going to cut off my head, I'll just look the other way while you cut my head off, and I'm still the winner. Like, and I don't know if that's like, I don't like. It's odd how much.
I might be going into an extreme position. Going. It's taking it straight from the argumentative point to going to the gulags. I mean, that's a pretty far jump between the two.
Right, but I mean, mechanically,
Power
there's
exists.
there's a process of like resistance, and like there's no need to fall in line. What is I don't know what the clearer version of that thought is. I don't know that I'll catch it anytime soon.
Well, and I'll just warn you, I've probably got about 9 to 12 minutes left here because,
Cool.
like I said, I do have to work early in the morning.
All right,
But
yeah, we can wrap it up.
before I continue, because I do have a good thought before that we can kind of conclude on.
Yeah.
Kind of going on what you were just talking about there. Remember how I was saying, we have to operate within the structures of the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Regardless of how we want to philosophically think about the world or how we would like to, imagine the world to be.
Yeah.
Power does exist. I mean, there are forms of power between different social groups, different economic groups. I mean, the fact that the country has been, or I would like to consider was, systematically racist, at least up until the Jim Crow era, and that was mostly specific states. Yeah, de facto racism lasted longer than that, and yes, there's still individual racism. The idea that the entire system is racist is kind of hard to point to any actual laws.
Right.
I mean, a lot of folks trying to say, well, all police forces were set up to catch slaves. That's why they hate black people. That's literally been an argument that I've been hearing.
Right.
Right off.
Which is
different corner.
Like, that's not true, but it's also, there were a few that were started up, but most of those were privatized, to be honest.
And it was a long ass time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and like
that's
like, and I'm a full.
It's like saying the German army, used the Luftwaffe.
Yeah.
Used to be an arm of the Nazi Empire,
dude.
and now of course they're still part of it.
Right.
They got the same name. They're part of the same country.
We were talking earlier, man. They still have the same outfit. They still call themselves the Luftwaffe. If you walk on a German Air Force base, you'll think you fucking time traveled. And, like, they get bummed out when you're like, Nazis! Because they're not Nazis. They're like, because Luftwaffe just means Air Force. Just so, like, it doesn't mean anything crazy. It just means Luft and then Waffe. And so Air Force.
They call it Kampfenswehr for the army and shit like that, and they still call their tanks Panzers and shit. I'm sure there's plenty of other German words that I could mispronounce while trying to pronounce very fancily.
And like, I could imagine if you walked on a German Air Force base right now and they're like, we're going to take you to a diversity class. You're like, this is definitely a shower where they're going to kill me. And then it'd be a diversity class, and you're like, no shit. Fuck me. And I think that's what some of America has is hey buddy, how about you come over here and we talk? And like, he's gonna fucking kill me. And he's like, hey man, I got extra peach cobbler if you want some. And they're like, oh wait, what? But like the fear that we build in each other, like, because it's the same thing in the cops. Like, they put fear in the police officers. They tell them every day that you don't know if he'll come home. Yes, you do, you fat fuck. You've come home every day for the past 40 years. You work in the range, or you work in the jail, or you work at the desk, or you work some beat. You're not in Beirut, goddammit. There are some of you officers who are on very difficult beats in very difficult situations, admittedly. But 80% of you fuckers are in Mayberry pretending it's the goddamn, Beirut. Chill out, fellas. And ladies. And in-betweeners.
Yeah, and I mean, how many officers actually discharged or over a career? I knew a cop that said he discharged it once, and it was on accident.
Yeah, my dad discharged his firearm once, and it was to kill a dog with rabies. Oh, you're freezing. Oh, no. The internet's spying on us. They hate us.
Hope he didn't kiss the dog afterwards.
Mm-hmm. That's how I was.
Oh, is it because of the Alex Jones thing earlier?
Dogs. Alex Jones, yeah, dude, they're spiking our shit. They're fucking up our... Dude, this thing's been spinning since the whole thing started. But yeah, we've been at it here for, 2.5 hours, 3 hours? We're having a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think...
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed the conversation. It's just
man,
work in the morning and all that shit. And I'm running out of innovative things to say.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
that's kind of how
given
we
the
run the show,
conversation,
dude.
now I know kind of where you go here on these things. It'll help inform me in the future.
Yeah, we just like to get wild and
But
stretch an idea out until it starts to make better sense. That's kind of the hope, I think.
or less sense.
Yeah, a lot of times less sense before it makes any sense. But, you know, the path to victory is fraught with ruin. I think. Might be. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I appreciate you joining us, Steven. And thanks for hanging with us. And we'll have you on some more in the future. And we'll get chatting. You wanted to talk about Fight Club. We already did an episode about Fight Club. So if you guys haven't seen it in the
I know you
past,
did.
go check it out. But I pretty much watch Fight Club once a year because it's the shit. Reading it is also worth it, but I'm dyslexic. We've talked about that. Not going to go further, but watching the movie's fantastic. And it's pretty goddamn close to the book. But it's worth talking about again and doing a second talk about, too, because it is one of those weird metamorphosis books. It's one of those, I think it was written that way to be interpretable. To be it's very specific in what it's doing, but it's also very kind of loose and open. And I think that's kind of how Chuck works in a lot of his writing, is keeping things so that they could always be kind of relevant. You can never know what era
I've watched. Yeah, exactly. I've watched it probably on and off every couple of years, and every time I watch it, I'm in a different position in my life, and it's completely. I completely interpret it differently.
Yeah,
pretty much every single time.
You know, we're not saying this is that. What is that top 100 list, or we're not comparing this to Citizen Kane. It's fucking Fight Club, but it is one of those awesome movies that like you watch it 100 times and you're like, oh fuck, there's always something new. There's always something interesting, and it also goes to the interesting point of that entire movie is about self-discovery. And whether or not that's a good version of self-discovery, like the topic of self-discovery is always what's kind of interesting. And I think like Fight Club's interesting just because he's doing self-improvement. He's doing his yoga and his diet and all the same things you do for self-improvement by living in a fucked up house and beating the shit out of strangers. Like, I think that ultimately that's kind of one of my favorite kind of interesting things is that like it is a yoga retreat, but not. Like, I don't know. But yeah, we'll talk about it at some point. We got Laser Daddy. We're talking to him about maybe doing some more movies. We want to get everybody back, all the boys who've had it before, get some gals on here, get some folks on here who can shut us up about when we're stupid and let us know when we're saying the right thing.
Pretty regular for me, so.
I know.
Someone to just like come over and push the mute button every once in a while when I go on a ramble.
Dude, I need that. I'm gonna have somebody like someone's just gonna sit with my cane and like pull me off like the Apollo, dude. So yeah, thanks for hanging. For those of you, we're gonna close it up with this. You can email us at dfd.slm@deployedfromdetroit.com. We enjoy the comments we get thus far in talking with you. If you have any questions, let us know. If you want to join us on the show or talk to us or whatever, we're still kind of open to that. So, again, same email, dfd.slm@deployedfromdetroit.com. We're here, obviously, live on YouTube. But if you're listening to us on podcast, news to you folks on the YouTube, we're also on podcast things. So you can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, I think it is now, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn. We're all over the place. Check it out. You can even say, hey, Alexa, play the School of Leadership and Madness on TuneIn. Fuck yeah, that's cool. Alexa, stop. Please stop. Alexa, please stop. Please, baby, stop. Stop. Yeah, there she goes. She stopped. We're good. We're good. So, thank you very much for joining us. That's been Steve. I've been Steve. This is the Deployed from Detroit School of Leadership and Madness. We love the fuck out of you. Go do some warrior stuff. I'm not quite sure how to help you with that. Me neither, babe.